Meet Duan Xiuming, the eccentric second son of a massive Hong Kong tycoon, who has decided to crash a high-society wedding wearing nothing but his bathrobe. His associate, Zhan Xiang, can only stare in pure disbelief as he looks Xiuming up and down, baffled by his choice of attire for such a formal event. Unbothered by the judgment, Xiuming sips his wine and nonchalantly asks if there's actually a problem with his relaxed appearance. From the balcony overlooking the noisy ballroom, a young artist named Lu Mingyu is summoned to begin a special task. Xiuming turns his sharp gaze toward her, ordering the artist to capture the entire wedding scene on her canvas right then and there. Mingyu stands silently by her easel, receiving strict instructions that she isn't allowed to leave until the masterpiece is fully complete. At first glance, she appears breathtakingly beautiful, possessing a calm and ethereal presence that catches the eye. However, as Xiuming watches her from a distance, he quickly dismisses her as a boring, empty shell of a person. Obeying the command without a single word of protest, Mingyu takes her seat to begin the long night of work. Her hand moves with practiced precision, dipping her brush into a vibrant palette of oil paints. She focuses intently on the canvas, meticulously rendering the happy couple just as she was ordered to do. Xiuming continues to observe her while lounging with his drink, noting that she hasn't stopped for a single bite of food during the entire ceremony. To him, she seems far too rigid and submissive, a worker who lacks any real spark or creative fire. Feeling disappointed by her lack of spirit, he leans back and closes his eyes, ready to move on from the dull display. Down in the ballroom, the ceremony reaches its grand finale as the couple enters the final moments of the wedding. As the announcer calls for a round of applause to bless the newlyweds, Mingyu remains perfectly still at her station. But suddenly, her eyes sharpen with a hidden intensity, and she abruptly stops her traditional painting style. The room erupts in a massive wave of celebration and clapping from the distinguished guests below. While the audience joins together in joy, a much more aggressive energy begins to flow through Mingyu's hands. Xiuming slowly opens his eyes, sensing that the festivities are over and it's finally time for him to depart. He rises from his chair, preparing to walk away from the scene without giving the artist a second thought. However, a sudden dark change on the easel catches his eye, forcing him to take a closer, more serious look. Violent, chaotic strokes of dark paint begin to spread across the canvas like a haunting shadow. The once perfect image of the bride and groom is ruthlessly covered by a thick, obsidian void of ink. Mingyu is no longer just painting. She is systematically destroying the happy scene with a powerful, artistic fury. Her expression remains cold and determined, her movements possessing a raw strength that contradicts her delicate appearance. Xiuming is absolutely stunned, realizing that beneath her patient surface lies a ruthless spirit, waiting to tear the world apart. With a final, dramatic swish of her brush, she completes the dark transformation of the artwork under the glowing lights. Now, Xiuming finds himself unable to look away, completely captivated by the raw talent and hidden depth she just revealed. A smirk plays on his lips as he realizes her technical skill and her striking features are a perfect, dangerous match. He stares deep into her eyes, finally finding the complexity he thought was missing from her soul. He walks right up to her, his presence looming large over the artist as she turns her head to face him. Mingyu meets his gaze with a calm, unwavering stare, acknowledging the man who just witnessed her secret rebellion. She stands up tall in her elegant heels, prepared to handle whatever this tycoon's son has to say about her work. Xiuming leans in and delivers a stunningly bold and direct proposition that catches her completely off guard. Mingyu's eyes widen in absolute shock as she processes the daring words of the man standing inches from her face. Xiuming locks eyes with the artist, searching for the fire he just saw on her canvas. Outside, the massive skyscraper looms over the city as the late-night negotiations begin. He notes that her gaze is sharp and cold, resembling a blade forged in ice. Mingyu tilts her head, questioning if he is truly serious about ending their professional engagement so abruptly. Seeing her hesitation, Xiuming begins to turn away, prepared to retract his offer and leave her behind. He starts to walk off, leaving the artist to deal with the consequences of her dark masterpiece. Without a word, Mingyu pushes the heavy easel toward the edge of the balcony to discard it. She offers a chilling smile to the crowd below, sarcastically wishing the bride a long and happy life. Down in the ballroom, the bride Lu Qian stares up in pure rage as she realizes her big day has been hijacked. The distance between the high society party and the balcony highlights the total chaos Mingyu has created. Xiuming lingers for a moment longer, fascinated by the sheer audacity of her public rebellion. Suddenly, he reaches out and firmly takes hold of her, deciding he isn't finished with this encounter yet. He pulls her into a close, professional stance, finally agreeing that it's time to retire for the evening. With a confident smirk, he declares that if he's going to rest, he'll do so with the most striking person in the room. He quickly whisks her away from the scene, leaving the staff completely bewildered by his sudden departure. The atmosphere shifts to a quiet, serene setting as the hectic wedding events are left far behind. Exhausted from the night's drama, Xiuming finally settles in to get some much-needed rest. Xiuming questions her sudden approval, wondering how she can favor a man she barely knows. Mingyu reaches out to trace the line of his mouth, her touch remaining purely clinical. She offers a blunt critique of his technical skills, treating the interaction like a graded assessment. Xiuming's sharp gaze remains cold and analytical, revealing no personal emotion. A faint, knowing smile appears as he processes her bold and detached observations. He leans in to remark on her cold nature, noting her lack of a sentimental heart. The quiet atmosphere is punctuated by a warning regarding the physical strain of their arrangement. Beyond the balcony, the city's skyline glimmers as the wedding energy finally fades. Xiuming rests in the dim light, his mind occupied by the artist's ruthless spirit. Seeking clarity, he retrieves a small case to settle his nerves on the terrace. Mingyu stands beside him, exhaling a slow breath as they share a quiet, professional truce. He observes her with a calculating look, intrigued by the potential of their alliance. Xiuming eyes her with genuine curiosity, questioning if her sudden shifts in personality are the result of a deeper psychological disorder. The two sit in a tense silence, the vast room barely illuminated as they continue their cold assessment of one another. Without a hint of hesitation, Mingyu reaches out and decisively crushes his cigarette into the glass ashtray. She looks away with a bored expression, bluntly stating that the specific brand he chose is simply not worth smoking. Xiuming leans back, noting that for two people who have just established a professional rapport, she seems surprisingly picky about his personal habits. Mingyu rests her chin on her hand, remaining completely unimpressed by his attempts at conversation or his choice of tobacco. He observes her with a steady, unreadable gaze, taking in her blunt critique with a strange sense of fascination. Breaking the stalemate, he decides it is time to head off for a quick shower to clear his head after the night's chaos. As he stands to leave, he promises to procure higher-quality cigarettes and mentions that he's already ordered a meal to make up for her skipping the wedding feast. He moves with a quiet, practiced elegance, his mind already calculating the next steps of their technical arrangement. Mingyu watches his retreating figure, her expression remaining a mask of cool indifference as he disappears into the distance. Left alone with her thoughts, a subtle spark of intrigue finally flickers in her eyes as she contemplates her next move. The soft sound of his slippers padding against the floor is the only noise in the otherwise silent, opulent suite. After finishing his business, Xiuming emerges with damp hair and a brooding look, the weight of the evening still pressing on him. He scans the room only to find it completely empty, the artist having vanished without leaving a single word behind. Meanwhile, the moon hangs high over the sprawling and opulent estate of the Lu family in Shazi City. Inside, Lu Qian is practically vibrating with rage, screaming about the public humiliation she suffered at her own wedding ceremony. Mingyu sits directly across from her at the formal dinner table, looking entirely unbothered by the verbal assault. She casually takes a bite of her food, offering a flat, sarcastic response that she simply has no memory of the events in question. The rest of the family joins in on the interrogation, pressuring Mingyu to explain why she would choose to tarnish their prestigious reputation. Her aunt, Du Wenrin, glares at her with a look of pure disdain, while demanding an end to this rebellious behavior. Mingyu continues to eat in silence, ignoring the insults regarding her character and the shameless display she put on for the high society guests. Elsewhere, Xiuming meets with his associates, listening as they describe the mysterious, ethereal woman who stole the spotlight at the ceremony. His friend laments missing out on the sight, unaware that the female ghost they are discussing was just in Xiuming's company. As Xiuming quietly sips his tea, his companion remains determined to uncover the identity of the beautiful, rebellious artist. Back at the Lu residence, the eldest brother, Lu Lin, finally interjects to tell the bickering women to stop causing trouble. Lu Qian refuses to back down, turning her fury on her brother for allowing Mingyu to attend the wedding in the first place. A sharp, authoritative thud echoes through the dining hall as the head of the family demands immediate silence and order. All eyes turn toward Mingyu as the patriarch, Lu Qiuliang, coldly orders her to meet him in his private study the moment dinner is over. Under the heavy gaze of her judgmental relatives, Mingyu can only lower her eyes and quietly agree to the upcoming confrontation. Night falls over the sprawling Lu family estate, where the air is thick with the weight of unspoken tension. Inside the quiet study, the patriarch Lu Qiuliang slowly rotates a string of prayer beads, his rhythmic movements masking a cold, calculating authority. He narrows his eyes behind his spectacles, demanding to know why Mingyu was seen wandering the backyard late last night. Mingyu stands her ground with an icy composure, reminding him that as a member of the family, she should be free to walk anywhere in her own home. She begins to turn away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she attempts to end the oppressive interrogation. Her uncle stops her with a calculated mention of her grandmother's failing health, warning her not to cause the elderly woman any further distress. He reaches out with a controlling gesture, adjusting her hair as if she were nothing more than a possession to be managed. He looms over her, offering a manipulative bargain that would finally grant her permission to see her sick relative. He leans in close, laying out the strict terms of her submission and giving her a choice of how long she must remain under his thumb. Following her silent but fierce defiance, the patriarch's expression hardens into a mask of cold, Analytical disappointment. He grips his cane with such force that his knuckles turn white, barely containing his simmering rage at her rebellion. Mingyu's gaze falters as the weight of his cruel decree to recite ancient commandments triggers a wave of dark, suppressed memories. Her eyes cloud over with a deep, lingering pain as the psychological scars of her childhood begin to resurface. A haunting vision of her younger self flashes through her mind, showing a terrified child begging for mercy behind a locked door. In the present, she bites her lip, refusing to let him see her crumble, despite the trauma of his words. A sudden noise from the doorway breaks the suffocating silence, pulling her back to the harsh reality of the room. Her brother, Lu Lin, steps inside to announce that a visitor from the prominent Su family has arrived specifically to see Mingyu. Mingyu's expression softens instantly, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes at the prospect of a sudden escape. The patriarch watches her with a stern, unyielding gaze, his total control momentarily challenged by the unexpected guest. Seizing the moment, Mingyu asks if she is finally permitted to leave the study to greet her visitor. Her uncle considers the request, his calculating mind weighing the social importance of the Su family name. He grants his permission with a thin smile, noting that maintaining connections with such a well-known family is a necessary social duty. Mingyu wastes no time, walking away from the oppressive shadow of her uncle without a single look back. As she reaches the exterior of the estate, she calls out to the familiar, friendly face waiting for her in the night air. Accompanied by her brother, she steps out into the courtyard where her temporary liberation finally begins. She is immediately swept into a joyous, warm embrace by her close friend, Shu Sayu. Xiaoyu beams with energy, insisting that they leave the gloomy atmosphere behind for an immediate night of shopping. Lu Lin lingers nearby, offering to act as their driver to ensure the two women reach their destination safely. Xiaoyu playfully declines the offer, confidently boasting that her own driving skills are more than enough for their secret adventure. With a mischievous grin, she steers Mingyu toward her sleek sports car, eager to get moving before the family changes their mind. The engine roars to life as the vehicle peels away from the Lu family estate, leaving the weight of their expectations in the dust. Inside the car, Mingyu's calm facade is replaced by a look of steely resolve as she tells Suyu to head straight for the airport. The car speeds through the neon-lit city streets, with Xiaoyu marveling at the sheer audacity of Mingyu's plan to run away from home. They navigate the urban landscape together, two rebels finding a rare moment of freedom in the middle of the night. As they wait at a red light, the reality of the daring escape settles over the quiet cabin of the car. Mingyu reveals her final destination, explaining her intent to fly to England to pursue her graduate studies in London. As she gazes out at the passing lights of the city, a genuine sense of peace finally washes over her, signaling the start of her new life. Mingyu reveals the secret months she spent painting in a basement to fund her eventual escape. Xiaoyu keeps her eyes fixed on the road, fully supporting her friend's daring plan to claim her independence. The conversation turns somber as Xiaoyu asks about the grandmother Mingyu is being forced to leave behind at the estate. A wave of deep melancholy washes over Mingyu as she contemplates the dark history of the family she's fleeing. Her gaze softens with a hidden pain, reflecting on the heavy price of her newfound freedom. She remembers how the patriarch Lu Qiuliang seized total control of the family after her grandfather's passing. Her mind drifts back to a time of pure happiness when her parents were still alive to protect her. That warmth was shattered by a brutal car accident that left her orphaned and at the mercy of her cruel relatives. In that cold household, her grandmother was the only one who offered her genuine love and a sense of belonging. However, the power-hungry family eventually tore the young girl away from her only source of comfort. Mingyu reveals the bitter truth that she hasn't been allowed to see her grandmother in 3 long years. Understanding the urgency, Xiaoyu presses on, determined to help her friend break free from the Lu family's grip. As the plane streaks across the night sky, Mingyu offers a silent prayer of thanks for the one person who helped her escape. 3 months later, a massive luxury cruiser cuts through the calm, open waters of the international sea. Deep inside the vessel, the elevator climbs steadily toward the most exclusive and expensive floors. Xiuming emerges into the lobby, his presence as commanding and sharp as the night they first met. He freezes momentarily when his associate mentions the incredible beauty of Zaizi City. The memory of the mysterious artist who vanished without a trace flashes through his mind like a haunting vision. He remains focused on his business, though the mystery of the female ghost clearly still lingers in his thoughts. Unbeknownst to him, a familiar figure in an elegant white dress walks gracefully through the lower hall. Mingyu admires the opulent surroundings, noting the ship's prestigious reputation for hosting world-class art. She looks forward to a peaceful holiday dedicated to her studies and her growing creative passion. The evening sun casts a vibrant orange glow over the deck of the high-end cruiser. Mingyu pauses to adjust her hair, unaware of the powerful gaze watching her from the level above. A pair of rhythmic, authoritative footsteps echoes across the polished floor of the upper balcony. Xiuming and his team continue their stroll, surveying the grand interior of the ship with professional detachment. Mingyu feels a sudden prickle of intuition, sensing a familiar and intense energy in the air. Xiuming glances down casually, his sharp eyes scanning the guests on the level below for anyone of interest. His breath catches in his throat as he finally spots the one person he thought was lost to the city. He stops abruptly, forcing his associates to halt their progress as he locks onto his target. His assistant looks on in total confusion, wondering what could have caused such a sudden change in demeanor. With a sharp, practiced motion, Xiuming signals for his entire team to remain silent and immediately retreat. This rare gesture is reserved only for the most critical and high-stakes tactical maneuvers of the Duan family. From his vantage point, he watches his elusive muse, realizing their game of cat and mouse has just moved to international waters. The security detail stands bewildered, questioning why their leader has suddenly halted their tactical advance. The guards maintain a strict combat stance, awaiting a signal to either charge or stand down. Polished dress shoes come to a halt beside elegant heels as two paths collide once more. Xiuming looms behind the artist as she gazes at the world-class masterpieces on display. He reaches out toward her dark hair, his presence silent and imposing in the gallery. Mingyu turns with a soft look of surprise, her eyes locking onto the man behind her. In a rare light-hearted moment, she pulls him toward the next exhibit, ignoring his heavy intensity. She brushes a stray lock of hair behind her ear, maintaining her characteristic poise. Her expression remains calm and inquisitive while she assesses the man who tracked her down. Xiuming checks his device with professional detachment while she stands ready with her luggage. She looks up at him, the reality of this international reunion finally sinking in. A silent realization flashes across her face as she confirms his unmistakable identity. He stands with a sharp, refined elegance, looking far more formal than their previous encounter. Mingyu offers a faint, knowing smile, noting his lack of casual loungewear today. Their close proximity on the polished floor creates a silent, professional stalemate. Xiuming reflects on her elusive spirit, sensing a depth in her he cannot easily obtain. She stands her ground, meeting his analytical gaze with a steady, unyielding look. In the middle of the grand hall, she bluntly inquires about his current social status. Xiuming admits he has been searching for her since the night she vanished from the city. He shifts his attention to her hand on the suitcase, noting her readiness to flee. The luggage handle represents the fleeting nature of their current arrangement. Determined, he resolves that he will not let her slip away into the shadows again. She tilts her head, sensing the sudden, sharp shift in his focus and demeanor. He reaches out and firmly grasps her hand, ensuring she remains by his side. The security team maneuvers into a tight formation to secure the immediate area. With a decisive stride, he leads her across the hall to conclude their unfinished business. They share a moment of intense emotional proximity, their faces inches apart as they confront the unresolved tension of their past. The elevator display climbs steadily, marking their rapid ascent to the private upper levels of the luxury cruiser. Xiuming provides physical support for the wary artist, his expression focused on reaching the safety of the suite without further delay. He carefully maneuvers past the opulent floral arrangements lining the corridor, ensuring her comfort during the transit. Mingyu looks on with a dazed expression, the sheer exhaustion of her long journey finally beginning to take its toll. Xiuming leans in close to monitor her reaction, his voice dropping to a low whisper as he probes for more information about her time in London. Mingyu responds with a tired but firm denial, asserting that her focus remained entirely on her artistic studies. He observes her with a steady, analytical gaze, searching for any hint of deception in her weary eyes. She maintains her professional composure, her face a mask of calm indifference despite the high-stakes interrogation. He tilts her chin up to ensure she is paying full attention to his demands for total transparency regarding her identity. She scoffs at his persistent questioning, whispering that her personal history is irrelevant to their current arrangement. Xiuming's eyes narrow as he processes her refusal, his frustration with her elusive nature reaching a breaking point. He notes that she has returned to that same cold, detached state that makes her so difficult for him to control. The suite remains in a soft, dim light as the long night of psychological sparring finally draws to a quiet close. Mingyu's eyes flutter open the next morning, the bright light of a new day filtering through the high, elegant windows. She sits up and prepares to face the day, clutching the heavy linens as she contemplates her next move on the international waters. The sound of suitcase wheels rolling across the floor signals her immediate intention to depart the luxury suite. Xiuming remains seated, casually holding his morning beverage, while maintaining a sharp, observant eye on his guests. Mingyu strides toward the exit with her luggage in tow, determined to leave the room and its occupant behind. He watches her every move from the sofa, his expression hardening as he realizes she truly intends to vanish once again. She pauses near the door, turning back with a look of pure, unbothered confidence to face his gaze. Xiuming lowers his eyes for a moment, a flicker of internal irritation crossing his face at her blatant defiance. Her grip tightens on the luggage handle, a silent confirmation that this conversation is officially reaching its end. She confronts him directly, questioning with a sharp wit if her conduct during their stay has finally met his exacting standards. He meets her gaze with a stoic mask, refusing to give her the satisfaction of an emotional reaction. Mingyu studies him for a beat, her eyes searching for any crack in his professional and cold armor. A playful, mocking smile touches her lips as she offers him a sarcastic compliment on his performance. Xiuming maintains his composure, his face betraying nothing of the strategic calculations he is making. He reaches out and presents her with a small slip of paper, instructing her to contact him directly for any future needs. She accepts the contact information, her expression clouded with a mix of lingering suspicion and intrigue. A faint, knowing smirk appears on his face as he believes he has successfully secured a way to track her movements. Mingyu holds the card up, mockingly suggesting that perhaps she should compensate him for the hard work he put into their meeting. They stand in a tense, professional stalemate, the air between them thick with the weight of their unspoken rivalry. Without a second thought, she tosses the contact information into the trash can as she makes her final exit. Xiuming watches her leave, his silhouette framed by the light of the room as he processes her total rejection of his terms. The discarded paper sits at the bottom of the bin, a symbol of her refusal to be managed by the Duan family. At the elevator, she repeatedly presses the call button, eager to put distance between herself and the high-stakes interrogation. She stands in the corridor, her posture radiating a sense of restless energy and a desire for true independence. Her fingers tighten around her smartphone, preparing to navigate the next stage of her journey through international waters. A sudden shadow falls over her, and she glances back to find that he has followed her out into the hallway. Xiuming looms directly behind her, his attention focused on the device in her hand with a professional curiosity. He leans in close, his presence commanding and intense as he demands total transparency regarding her digital contacts. She hesitates for a moment before placing her finger on the sensor to unlock the phone's screen. He holds his own device up, initiating a digital handshake to ensure their connection is officially logged in his system. Mingyu observes the process with a cold, analytical eye, completely unimpressed by his display of technical authority. Xiuming catches the look in her eyes, wondering if she finds this mandatory networking session to be nothing more than a joke. The two devices sync instantly, the glow of the screens illuminating their hands in the dim lighting of the hallway. With the connection approved, he looks down at her, expecting a level of cooperation that she has yet to show. He offers to provide a formal tour of the local area, attempting to extend her stay under his constant supervision. She looks away, flatly stating that she has no interest in playing any more of his strategic social games. His frustration finally boils over as he demands to know what could possibly be more important than his personal offer. She meets his glare with a hauntingly serious expression, revealing that her parents' legacy is the only matter that truly counts. She firmly presses the elevator call button, her mind set on a swift and final departure from the suite. Xiuming suddenly catches her hand, issuing a stern warning that she is never to delete or block his contact information. She delicately but decisively pulls her fingers away from his grasp, refusing to be physically restrained by his overbearing presence. Mingyu steps into the waiting elevator with her luggage in tow, leaving the imposing man behind in the corridor. Xiuming watches her go, his expression a complex mix of professional curiosity and lingering frustration at her defiance. From inside the elevator car, she offers one last look at the man who tried so hard to control her every move. Her eyes remain steady and unreadable as the heavy metal doors begin to slide shut between them. He stands perfectly still, his tall silhouette framed by the narrowing gap of the elevator entrance as he watches his prize vanish. As the doors close completely, he realizes with a jolt that she has truly left his side, without a single moment of hesitation. He shifts his focus back to his mobile device, noting that her digital nickname is simply listed as Yi. He stares at the screen with a faint, intrigued scowl, wondering if this alias is yet another layer of her carefully constructed mystery. Alone in the opulent hallway, he remains motionless while processing the elusive nature of the artist he just let go. Downstairs, Mingyu is suddenly spotted by a group of familiar faces from her social circle, ending her brief moment of solitude. Her friend Shu Suyu rushes forward with a bright, energetic smile, surprised to find her on this specific luxury cruiser. However, the mood shifts as Wenjun reveals that the Lu family patriarch has been frantically searching for her ever since she vanished. Mingyu remains silent, her profile hardening as the weight of her family's oppressive expectations returns to haunt her. Wenjun takes a commanding tone, insisting that he will escort her back to the Lu estate as soon as the ship docks tomorrow. Her knuckles turn white as she tightens her grip on her suitcase handle, her mind racing for a way out of this new social trap. She lowers her gaze and appears to concede to the pressure, while secretly plotting her next move to maintain her independence. The following morning, the group gathers on the deck, only to discover that Minyu's room is empty, and she is nowhere to be found. Wenjin's irritation grows as he realizes his intended charge has slipped through his fingers and left him behind. Xiaoyu checks her latest messages, confirming with a smirk that Mingyu has already disembarked the ship ahead of schedule. A heated argument erupts between the companions over the total lack of communication regarding her early exit from the vessel. Wenjin accuses Xiaoyu of helping her escape, his temper flaring at the loss of control over the family's runaway artist. Back in the city, the gray, overcast sky hangs low over the towering skyscraper skyscrapers of the sprawling urban landscape. Mingyu stands before a grand stone gateway, holding a delicate bouquet of purple flowers in her arms. She takes a deep breath, her face reflecting a solemn resolve as she prepares to honor her parents' legacy in private. Suddenly, a sleek black luxury sedan pulls up to the curb right beside her, cutting off her path. Her eyes widen in shock as she recognizes the vehicle and the immediate implications of its sudden arrival at the gate. A team of professional associates steps out of the car, surrounding her with a clinical efficiency before she can make another move. The professional security detail closes in, trapping Mingyu between two imposing figures in black suits. A polished dress shoe hits the pavement as a high-ranking member of the Lu family finally reveals himself. Lu Lin comes to a halt directly in front of the runaway artist, his expression cold and unforgiving. Without a single word of greeting, a sharp strike echoes through the quiet air of the stone gateway. Mingyu reels from the sudden impact, her head snapping to the side as the reality of her capture sets in. Lu Lin casually adjusts his sleeve while the guards maintain a firm, restrictive grip on her arms. She remains silent, the reddening mark on her cheek a testament to the family's brutal methods of discipline. She looks up at her captor with a gaze that is far more defiant than he ever expected. He reveals that while Lu Qian was sent to secure the airport, he knew exactly where to find her. Mingyu's lips curve into a faint, knowing smile as she prepares to dismantle his sense of superiority. She leans in close, mockingly pointing out the desperate chaos her disappearance has caused the prestigious Lu family. Lu Lin's jaw tightens in a fit of rage, his patience with her psychological games wearing dangerously thin. She reminds him that since her parents' passing, he has shown nothing but total disregard for their memory. The guards stand by as silent observers to the internal power struggle unfolding between the two relatives. He snarls a refusal to acknowledge the familial ties she is using to provoke him. Mingyu hits back with a verbal barb, comparing her mother's grace to the corruption of his own lineage. He erupts in a shout, unable to handle the blunt truth regarding his father's manipulative actions. She continues her verbal assault, labeling his father a psychopath for the way he treated her mother. Driven to the edge, Lu Lin raises his hand to strike her again, his composure completely shattered. Mingyu doesn't flinch, instead tracing the line of her own jaw with a chillingly calm and steady touch. She challenges him to finish the job, knowing exactly how much her father will punish him for damaging a family asset. Lu Lin stares her down, his breath hitching as he realizes she is completely unafraid of his physical threats. The security team quickly intervenes, physically pulling the young master back before he can cause a permanent scene. He forces himself to take a deep breath, fighting to regain his professional mask of detachment. Seizing the momentary lull in the conflict, Mingyu asks for permission to leave her bouquet at the gate. They lock eyes in a silent, high-stakes negotiation over this final small request for respect. Under the watchful eyes of the guards, she approaches the entrance to fulfill her original mission. She offers the doorman a soft, genuine smile as he agrees to deliver the flowers to her mother's resting place. While the guards focus on her movements, she subtly reaches for the device tucked into her pocket. With a single, calculated motion, she taps the screen with discretion to send a signal to her only outside ally. With her message delivered, she turns to face her captors and prepares for the inevitable return to the Lu estate. A golden taxi roars down the highway, its engine humming with a sense of extreme urgency. Inside, Susayu breathes a sigh of relief, having successfully outmaneuvered Wenjun to keep her private messages safe. She glances out the window, her eyes catching the sharp glint of a prestigious golden hood ornament passing by. A sleek, obsidian Rolls-Royce glides across the asphalt, radiating an aura of untouchable wealth and power. An entire fleet of luxury vehicles soon dominates the road, moving in a synchronized and imposing formation. The taxi driver notices her awe, explaining that these cars are a common sight for those who know the city's true elite. Suayu leans forward with intense curiosity, desperate to know the identity of the person commanding such an expensive motorcade. The driver reveals the owner is the legendary overlord of Xiangshan Ao, a man feared throughout the region. He speaks the man's terrifying moniker with a hushed reverence, the great white shark of the high seas. Inside the lead car, Duan Xiuming sits in silent contemplation, his sharp features illuminated by the passing city lights. The driver elaborates on the tycoon's vast empire, noting that his influence extends far beyond just a single vessel. Shuayu's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as she realizes the staggering scale of the world she has just entered. She wonders aloud if such a massive security presence is a response to a high-profile assassination attempt. The fleet maneuvers ruthlessly through traffic, reflecting the cold and uncompromising nature of its powerful owner. Xiuming checks his device with attached focus, the undisputed prince of Hong Kong's most elite social circles. His methods are rumored to be efficient and unforgiving, stemming from the hidden, darker side of his family lineage. The driver clarifies that these assets are his personal property, earned through his own strategic brilliance rather than inheritance. Legends say he returned to the city at 16 and single-handedly crushed a major family crisis by the age of 18. Those who stood in his way were left broken, victims of a total and violent reshuffling of the regional power structure. Having saved the patriarch's life, his standing now completely eclipses the official heirs of the family. The taxi finally screeches to a halt at the gates of Yaodu, ending the driver's dramatic history lesson. Xiaoyu hops out of the vehicle, her mind immediately shifting back to her urgent mission to find Mingyu. She rushes to the security window, inquiring if an exceptionally beautiful woman left something behind for her. The guard remains stoic and professional, demanding the secret password before he can release any information. With a chillingly calm expression, Xiaoyu recites the password. "Today, I feel like killing someone." The guard nods in confirmation and begins to lead her toward the secluded areas of the property. They walk through the quiet, somber rows of the cemetery, where the weight of the past hangs heavy in the air. Xiaoyu finds the items Mingyu left behind, including her passport and a request to tend to the family grave. Her heels click against the pavement as she comes to a sudden stop before the designated resting place. She presents a beautiful bouquet of white flowers, fulfilling the final task her friend entrusted to her. A look of deep sorrow and concern crosses her face as she contemplates Mingyu's current whereabouts. Meanwhile, at Yadu Airport, a suitcase lies open with its contents tossed aside in a frantic search. Lu Lin looms over Mingyu, his face twisted in a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Mingyu stands her ground with a cold elegance, flatly stating she possesses no travel documents or passes. He snarls at her, demanding to know how she managed to travel without a single trace of official paperwork. She looks away with a detached air, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a direct or honest answer. A mocking, sharp smile plays on her lips as she confirms his worst suspicions about her cleverness. She addresses him with a fake sweetness, calling him Big Brother Lin, just to further provoke his temper. He grits his teeth in a fit of fury when she brings up the calculated disrespect shown to her mother's memory. He realizes with a jolt that every word she spoke during their journey was a calculated provocation to distract him. By playing on his emotions, she ensured he was too preoccupied to ever inspect her luggage properly. He stares down at the messy, empty suitcase, cursing the sly fox who managed to outplay him at every turn. They stand in a tense, silent confrontation, the vast airport terminal magnifying the scale of their familial war. He delivers a cruel ultimatum, threatening that she will never see her grandmother again if she continues to resist. The light leaves Mingyu's eyes as the weight of his threat finally pierces through her defensive armor. In the middle of the empty hall, Lu Lin accuses her of destroying the family, while she remains a silent, tragic figure. The Lu residence in Shizi Town sits under a cold, silent moon as the night deepens. In the quiet backyard, the wheels of a wheelchair come to a slow, rhythmic stop. Lu Qian leans in close to her grandmother, her mind focused entirely on her own selfish desires. She shamelessly begs the elderly woman for jewelry to comfort her after her recent divorce. The grandmother pulls away in confusion, flatly stating that she has no idea who this stranger is. Infuriated by the rejection, Lu Qian stomps away while cursing the old woman's fading memory. Her mood shifts to malice as she spots Mingyu approaching the secluded courtyard. She blocks the path with an arrogant sneer, demanding that Mingyu kneel if she wants to see her grandmother. Mingyu doesn't blink, instead calmly bringing up the humiliating details of Lu Qian's failed marriage. The verbal barb hits home, sending Lu Qian into a blind, screaming fit of rage. Mingyu watches the outburst with a cold, detached amusement, completely unfazed by the screaming. She reminds her cousin that the entire marriage was just a failed business deal for the Lu family. Lu Qian's face contorts with pure hatred as her deepest insecurities are laid bare. She lunges forward with a desperate cry, her composure shattered by the biting truth. In the heat of the struggle, a set of heavy metal keys slips from her grasp. The keys hit the stone pavement with a sharp, echoing metallic ring. Before Lu Qian can react, Mingyu's hand darts down to claim the prize. Lu Qian freezes in shock as she realizes she has just handed her rival the literal key to the house. Mingyu wastes no time, turning the key in the lock with practiced efficiency. She slips through the heavy doors, leaving her cousin stranded in the dark courtyard. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home signals Lu Qian's total defeat in this encounter. Lu Qian pounds on the wood in a futile display of temper, her screams ignored by the staff. Inside, Mingyu's professional mask finally crumbles as she rushes toward the woman she loves. The grandmother's eyes light up with a sudden, rare clarity at the sight of her favorite child. They collapse into a heartfelt embrace, the only moment of genuine warmth in this cold estate. Mingyu settles by the bed, her heart breaking as she realizes the true extent of the woman's dementia. She looks down with a pained expression, knowing her grandmother no longer recognizes her own children. The elderly woman reaches out to pat her hand, finding comfort in the presence of her Xiao Yi. Outside, the moon continues to glow over the residence where old family secrets are buried. The heavy atmosphere is shattered as a group of hostile relatives bursts into the private sanctuary. The aunt glares at Mingyu with pure venom, outraged by her unauthorized entry into the room. The commotion draws the attention of the family patriarch, who looms in the doorway with an icy presence. He steps forward to confront Mingyu, his gaze scanning her with a cold, analytical precision. His eyes catch the faint, red mark of a handprint still visible on her delicate cheek. The patriarch's voice drops to a dangerous low as he demands to know who dared to strike a member of his bloodline. Mingyu offers a subtle, knowing glance toward her brother, letting the silence speak for itself. The elder turns his imposing focus toward Lu Lin, the air in the room turning suffocatingly tense. A sudden, violent strike cuts through the air as the patriarch enforces his absolute authority. Lu Lin staggers back from the impact, forced to swallow his pride before the man who truly rules the Lu family. Du Wenren's face pales in sheer disbelief as she witnesses the patriarch's cold-blooded enforcement of family discipline. High above the estate, the full moon casts a chilling, indifferent glow over the silent grounds of the Lu family manor. A heavy metal key slides into the lock with a sharp click, signaling the arrival of an unwanted visitor in the dead of night. Mingyu sits huddled on the floor of her darkened room, her silhouette a picture of isolated defiance against her captors. Lu Lin steps through the threshold, his expression heavy with a complex mix of guilt and lingering familial duty. She tilts her head back to meet his gaze, her eyes like ice as she questions exactly which past incident he is referring to. He tries to justify the family's actions, claiming that even Lu Qian faced his father's wrath after the truth of the past came to light. Mingyu stands tall, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she asks if Lu Qian's punishment ever involved being beaten and discarded like trash. A haunting memory flashes back of a young, terrified Mingyu chained alone in a pitch-black storage room with no hope of escape. The vision of her younger self sobbing in the darkness serves as a brutal reminder of the physical and mental scars she still carries. Lu Lin's brows furrow in frustration, visibly struggling to reconcile his sister's trauma with the family image he desperately wants to maintain. He gestures toward her while standing in the center of the room, begging her to simply forget the past for the sake of their shared bloodline. She leans in close to his face, her expression turning predatory as she demands he experience the same 3 days of salt-rubbed wounds. Her heels come to a sudden, sharp halt on the carpet as she prepares to end their useless conversation once and for all. She looks back over her shoulder with a gaze of pure contempt, flatly labeling him a pathetic joke in the grand scheme of things. Losing his composure, Lu Lin reaches out and maintains a firm, desperate grip on her wrist to prevent her from leaving. Mingyu remains perfectly calm, pointing out that the patriarch's office is just floors away and ready to punish any further disturbance. The threat of his father's intervention causes Lu Lin to hesitate, his eyes widening as he realizes the danger of his current position. He slowly pulls his hand away, finally yielding to the psychological pressure she has expertly applied. She extends her palm in a demanding gesture, ordering him to return the mobile device he confiscated during her capture. He nervously scratches his head, admitting that his mother has the phone and is currently attempting to bypass its security. Mingyu doesn't budge an inch, repeating her command with an icy authority that leaves him with no room for negotiation. She draws in a deep, sharp breath as if to scream, using the threat of noise to force his hand in the quiet mansion. Panicked, he rushes forward to cover her mouth, frantically promising to retrieve the device and bring it to her the following morning. Far from the drama of Sisi Town, the sun shines brightly over the ultra-modern architecture of the Xiuming Manor in Xiangshan. Duan Xiuming reclines by the pool, his focus entirely on the unanswered messages he sent to the elusive artist known as Yi. He stares at the screen with a growing sense of intrigue, wondering if she is intentionally giving him the cold shoulder. His fingers fly across the digital keyboard with a practiced efficiency as he prepares to take matters into his own hands. Without looking up, he issues a cold command to his assistant to book the very first flight available to the city of Zizi. The assistant stands by with a towel, clearly surprised by the sudden change in the young master's travel schedule. Under Xiuming's sharp, uncompromising gaze, the staff member bows deeply and promises to execute the task immediately. Later at the airport terminal, Xiuming looms over his associate, demanding a status update on the search for the missing girl. Zhan Shang looks physically drained, explaining the sheer impossibility of finding one person in a city of 10 million inhabitants. Xiuming's expression remains unreadable and cold as he questions the actual competence of his supposedly top-tier investigation team. Shan Xiang trails behind him while lugging a suitcase, complaining that looking for her without a name or photo is pure madness. He pleads for a shred of humanity, desperately hoping his boss will realize the toll this mission is taking on him. The tycoon's footsteps come to a sudden stop on the polished airport floor as a specific thought crosses his mind. Shan Xiang lets out a comical, high-pitched wail of despair as he realizes he won't be getting any mercy today. The moon hangs heavy over the Lu estate, where the lights of the patriarch's office burn with a cold, clinical intensity. Mingyu stares at a photo of her ailing grandmother, her heart sinking as her father demands she finally learn to behave. Lu Kuliang delivers a chilling ultimatum, threatening to move the elderly woman into intensive care at a moment's notice if Mingyu resists. Mingyu recoils in horror, unable to believe her own father would use his own mother's health as a mere bargaining chip. He remains completely unmoved by her outburst, flatly stating that the sick require whatever care he deems necessary to maintain order. A visible tremor runs through Mingyu's frame as she realizes the terrifying, heartless depth of his cruelty. Nearby, a lavish spread of food sits untouched as the rest of the family gathers for a tense, late-night meal. Lu cams her utensils onto the table with a sharp clatter, her voice dripping with resentment over the elder's constant favoritism toward Mingyu. Du Wenren quickly silences her daughter, fearing that the servants or outsiders might overhear their internal power struggles. The room falls into a stunned silence when the aunt suddenly orders Lu Qian to go and prepare fresh clothes for their guest, Mingyu. With a calculating glint in her eyes, Du Wenren reveals her plan to marry Mingyu off to a powerful man the moment her facial bruises heal. Lu Qian erupts in a fit of jealous rage, screaming that she shouldn't have to manage the future of the woman she hates most. The aunt's expression turns razor-sharp as she emphasizes the need to secure a political alliance with a family that holds absolute authority. Lu Qian stands up in defiance, demanding to know what makes a traitor like Mingyu worth such a high-stakes investment. Du Wenren gently pats her daughter's hand, using a soothing tone to mask the cold-blooded nature of her strategic maneuvering. A slow realization finally dawns on Lu Qian's face as she begins to see the tactical advantage of her mother's ruthless scheme. Lu Lin pushes his chair back and stands, his appetite completely ruined by the suffocating atmosphere of the dining room. He offers a bitter, wry smile as he gestures to the physical marks of the patriarch's discipline still visible on his own face. His mother watches him leave, promising that she will personally ensure he gets his revenge for the humiliation Mingyu caused. He pauses for a moment in the shadows, his head bowed as he reflects on the shifting, dangerous loyalties within the manor. Across the city, in a high-end apartment, a dart strikes the center of a board with a sharp, echoing thud. Duan Xiuming stares into the distance, haunted by the fact that the mysterious artist has vanished without a single trace for 2 days. His associate enters the room with a stack of reports, mentioning that a man named He-song is claiming the wedding drama was a setup. Xiuming grips a dart tightly, his mind racing as he wonders if Yi is intentionally avoiding his every attempt at contact. The associate's eyes light up with excitement as he announces he has finally discovered why the girl is so elusive. Xiuming remains skeptical, questioning if the rumors are simply the result of too many people chasing the same ghost. The young assistant beams with pride, thrilled that his boss was able to guess the underlying cause of their investigation's stagnation. He paces the floor while explaining that every unmarried hair in the city's elite circles is now hunting for the mysterious beauty. Xiuming's jaw tightens as he realizes just how many rivals are now competing for the woman he considers his personal prize. The associate ponders her true identity, questioning if the Lu family is hiding her because of some scandalous secret. He recalls the rebellious energy she displayed while painting, noting that her spirit is far too fierce for a simple adopted daughter. A flash of pure annoyance crosses Xiuming's face at the suggestion that he doesn't already understand her unique worth. The associate asks if they should resort to drastic measures, though he worries about the risk of exposing their own operations. He suggests attending an exclusive private party at a high-end bar where the city's socialites are known to gossip. With a look of grim determination, Xiuming hurls his final dart and declares that they will find their answers tonight. 3 days later, He-song of the prominent He family gathers with his associates on a secluded balcony overlooking the lights of Saizi City. They scan the horizon with a professional intensity, knowing that if a certain mysterious woman shows up tonight, her identity will finally be exposed. Inside the opulent lounge, the elite socialites whisper about the Lu family's sudden decision to debut a daughter who has never been seen before. Mingyu makes her grand entrance, her presence radiating a quiet, ethereal beauty that immediately commands the attention of every guest. A group of friends rushes to greet her with genuine excitement, thrilled to see Lu back in their exclusive social circle. Mingyu pulls her friend aside to explain that her phone was forced to self-destruct to protect her digital secrets from the Lu family's constant surveillance. Susayu leans in close, urgently whispering a plan to smuggle Mingyu to her home to retrieve her hidden passport and escape for good. A shadow of deep grief crosses Mingyu's face as she reminds her friend that her grandmother's failing health keeps her tethered to the city. Shuayu's eyes widen in a fit of fury at the realization that the Lu family is using a sick elderly woman as a psychological weapon. She reaches out to grip Mingyu's arm in a supportive gesture, providing a moment of human connection amidst the hollow, glittering party. To maintain their cover in the crowded room, Suayu decides to refer to her friend only as Xiao Yi from this moment forward. A brief vision of Suayu standing before a grave serves as a reminder of the deep, tragic roots of their shared loyalty and history. Her gaze hardens with a newfound resolve, determined to help her friend navigate the treacherous social waters of the Xizi elite. Lu Qian interrupts the private moment, her voice a sharp hiss as she demands to know why a traitor is bothering to network with these families. High above the crowd, Duan Xiuming's eyes narrow as he catches a sudden glimpse of a familiar figure moving through the lounge. Mingyu stands framed by delicate white blossoms, looking every bit the masterpiece Xiuming has been hunting for since their first meeting. From his vantage point on the terrace, Xiuming waves off his associates to focus his entire attention on the woman below. His intense, analytical gaze locks onto her, the sheer magnetism of her presence confirming his suspicions about her true identity. Mingyu remains perfectly unaware of the predatory eyes watching her from the shadows as she looks out over the estate grounds. Xiuming's associate marvels at her beauty, noting that she easily outshines every celebrity and socialite in attendance tonight. A few minutes later, the focus shifts to a quiet, sun-drenched corner of the garden where the atmosphere is thick with anticipation. An assistant approaches Xiuming with a confidential file, finally providing the specific name he has been desperate to learn. He scans the document with a cold smirk, repeating the name Lu Mingyu, like a hard-won prize in a high-stakes game. He raises a glass of wine to his lips, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous purr as he labels her a good girl for her cleverness. With a flick of his wrist, he instructs his subordinate to use every professional resource available to lure her away from the crowd. Back in the lounge, the socialites continue to gossip about why the mysterious Miss Lu has remained hidden from the public for so long. Lu Qian leans into Mingyu's personal space, whispering a venomous warning not to embarrass the family name in front of the elite. Mingyu doesn't flinch, coolly retorting that Lu Qian is easily the most unintelligent member of their entire bloodline. They maintain a facade of sisterly affection for the onlookers, though the tension between them is sharp enough to cause a scene. Mingyu's head snaps around as she senses someone approaching her from the side of the hall with a formal air. Hee-song introduces himself as the club's manager, claiming that Yu is waiting for her in a private room upstairs. Trusting the messenger, Mingyu follows him through the heavy glass doors and into the quiet, restricted corridors of the establishment. The sound of her heels on the floor is followed by the chilling, metallic click of a deadbolt sliding into place behind her. Mingyu's eyes widen in sudden alarm as she realizes she has been led directly into a calculated and professional trap. From the other side of the glass, Zhan Jiang watches the scene unfold, his expression a mix of professional awe and lingering concern. Mingyu's gaze darting around the room reveals her sharp mind already searching for a way to regain control of the situation. Zhan Xiang and his partner stand frozen by the entrance, stunned by the sheer audacity of the maneuver they just witnessed. The assistant trembles in a comical display of nerves, convinced that the woman's icy glare was directed solely at his incompetence. A dark silhouette looms over Mingyu, the air in the private garden turning heavy with the presence of her mysterious pursuer. Xiuming reclines in a patio chair with attached air, his eyes fixed on Mingyu as he slowly enunciates her full name. Mingyu meets his gaze with a defiant elegance, taking a slow sip of her drink as she prepares for the inevitable confrontation. Xiuming looks down at the document in his hand, his voice dropping as he demands to know her real name. He taps the paper with a rhythmic, calculated patience, waiting for her to drop the act. Mingyu swirls her wine glass with effortless grace, coolly identifying him as the infamous Duan Xiuming. Xiuming's gaze sharpens, noting that her level of arrogance is something even he finds difficult to match. Settling into his chair, he listens as she asks where he thinks a girl like her could have possibly originated. He watches her from behind, questioning why she maintains such drastically different personas in public and private. Xiuming repeats her excuse of strict family rules, skeptical of her true intentions for seeking out his company. Mingyu remains a picture of calm elegance, her expression unreadable as he brings up the intensity of their previous encounter. She challenges him to look her directly in the eyes, refusing to let him hold the psychological upper hand. Leaning in until they are inches apart, she tests his composure with a bold, unwavering proximity. She compliments his vocal range, mockingly suggesting that he could easily find work doing voiceovers for dramatic scenes. Xiuming looks visibly annoyed by her wit, realizing she is a much more capable actress than he initially thought. He waves his hand dismissively, stating that her innocent girl routine is far less interesting than her natural defiance. Mingyu casts a subtle glance toward the shadows, her mind already working on her next move. She notices the staff members standing at a distance, wondering exactly how much influence Xiuming holds over his establishment. He leans back with a relaxed air, explaining that the club manager is actually an associate of his brother. Her curiosity piqued, she asks for the specific name of this mysterious brother. Xiuming pauses, wondering why she is suddenly so interested in the details of his family's inner circle. He eventually provides the name Shan Xiang, watching closely for any sign of recognition on her face. Mingyu stares into the distance, her eyes narrowing as she commits the name to memory for future use. Across the patio, the assistants feel a sudden, inexplicable chill, as if they are being targeted by an invisible predator. Xiuming reaches for a cigarette, his fingers brushing against the cardboard as he prepares to light up. Mingyu quickly reaches out to stop him, her hand steady as she prevents the flame from catching. He offers a rare, genuine smile, admitting he doesn't want her to get in trouble if her family smells smoke on her hair. His eyes travel over her silhouette, noting the stark contrast between her current attire and their first meeting. Mingyu stands framed by the soft garden light, looking every bit the high society daughter she was forced to become. He jokes that this formal dress isn't nearly as comfortable as the casual loungewear she wore before. Turning more serious, he asks why she ignored every single message he sent her over the past few days. He searches her face for any sign of lingering anger or intentional avoidance. Mingyu looks away, her voice softening as she explains that her family confiscated her phone the moment she returned. The explanation catches him off guard, forcing him to reconsider his previous assumptions about her silence. He finds it hard to believe that a grown woman is still being subjected to such restrictive parental supervision. A flash of guilt crosses his mind as he realizes he has been fuming over a situation she couldn't even control. Without hesitation, he pulls out his own mobile device and slides it across the table for her to use. He signals to his associate with a sharp wave, demanding immediate attention from the sidelines. He orders the man to go out and purchase a brand new SIM card to ensure her communications remain private. He explains that his personal phone is equipped with top-tier encryption, making it impossible for her family to track. He encourages her to browse the device at her leisure, showing a level of trust he rarely extends to others. Mingyu takes the phone with a small, appreciative nod, finally feeling a sense of digital freedom. Xiuming switches to Cantonese to apologize for his earlier outburst, hoping to smooth over the tension between them. He lists the various languages they can use to communicate, suggesting they'd go anywhere in the world together. Mingyu dismisses his offer to learn the local dialect, pointing out that the Shizi tongue is far too complex for a beginner. She looks up at the darkening sky, realizing that her time in the garden is rapidly running out. She stands up and brushes off her skirt, informing him that she must return before her absence is noticed. Her heels click against the stone floor as she makes her way toward the exit of the private terrace. Xiuming watches her go, reminding her to stay in touch now that she has a secure way to reach him. She pauses at the door to give him a radiant smile that seems to illuminate the entire courtyard. He finds himself momentarily breathless, captivated by the sheer brilliance of her genuine expression. She bids him a formal farewell, addressing him by his title as she disappears back into the party. A small, satisfied smirk plays across Xiuming's lips as he watches his guest make her exit. He adjusts his sleeve, his mind already spinning with plans for their next meeting. With a look of absolute determination, he vows to one day take her away from this city and make her his bride. Mingyu offers a faint, mysterious smile as she finally departs. Xiuming watches her go, his expression darkening with a heavy intensity. He observes her departure, noting the lasting impression she leaves on the atmosphere. As Mingyu moves through the hall, she nearly collides with Hisong and his companion. Her sharp eyes lock onto the men, dissecting their true motives instantly. She coolly inquires about the number of heirs within the He family lineage. Hisong spirals into a panic, terrified by the cold authority in her gaze. Xiang simply laughs at his friend's visible distress. Back on the terrace, Xiuming idly swirls his wine, lost in thought. He shocks his associates by asking for the local marriage proposal customs. A subtle smirk forms as he focuses on the liquid in his glass. Hisong reacts with pure disbelief at the tycoon's sudden romantic interest. Xiuming's gaze turns razor-sharp, demanding a serious answer from his peer. Hisong stammers, completely out of his depth regarding such formal tradition. The associate warns that a hasty proposal might disrespect a girl of her status. Xiuming dismisses the social hurdles as a mere annoyance to his goals. Hisong quickly pulls out his phone to contact a higher authority. He reaches out to his brother, seeking immediate backup for the situation. Xiuming sits back, listening as Hisong demands help with the marriage arrangements. The line goes dead, leaving the men stunned by the abrupt rejection. Hisong rages at the screen, unable to believe his brother hung up. Frustration boils over as he realizes his brother is busy in another city. Inside the lounge, Suayu searches frantically for her missing friend. Lu Qian scoffs, knowing Mingyu has no way to call for help. Suayu takes a drink, her nerves frayed by the ongoing search. Relief washes over her as Mingyu finally reappears in the crowd. Mingyu explains she got lost after Hisong abandoned her for a business talk. Suyu's temper flares at the manager's unprofessional behavior. Both women corner Hisong, berating him for his lack of care. Mingyu maintains her composure, ignoring the petty squabble around her. Hisong offers a nervous chuckle, trying to diffuse the rising tension. He watches Mingyu closely, noting her expert navigation of the social scene. The group settles into an uneasy circle as formal introductions begin. Xiang steps forward, revealing his status as the lounge's true owner. Suayu immediately pivots to talk shop about high-end sports cars. Lu Qian watches the exchange, her mind whirring with new schemes. She decides Xiang is too valuable a prize to waste on Mingyu. Lu Qian interrupts to introduce a new, older suitor from the Hao family. Hao Lushing approaches, offering Mingyu a glass of wine with a polite smile. The man's overbearing gaze makes his social intentions clear. Mingyu flatly refuses, stating she has no tolerance for alcohol. Lu Qian seizes the glass, forcing it into Mingyu's reluctant hand. The cousins lock eyes in a silent, venomous power struggle. Lu Qian barks an order for Mingyu to show proper respect and drink. Under heavy pressure, Mingyu is cornered into a toast she never wanted. A sudden, clumsy spill disrupts the conversation as wine splashes across the floor. Seizing the opportunity to reset the situation, Mingyu calmly reaches for a fresh glass from a passing waiter's tray. She offers the replacement to her companion with a practiced grace that masks her underlying frustration. Lu Qian's impatience boils over as she barks a sharp command for Mingyu to finish her drink immediately. Under the watchful eyes of the gathered socialites, Mingyu finally accepts the glass to maintain the public facade. She tilts her head back and takes a deep sip, surprising the onlookers with her sudden compliance. A flash of realization gleams in her eyes as she tastes the liquid, discovering it is actually harmless fruit juice. In a moment of secret triumph, she recalls the clever swap she and Suayu orchestrated to outsmart their rivals. Hao Lusheng senses an opening and tries to corner her, suggesting they find a more private place to chat. Before he can lead her away, a powerful hand clamps onto his arm with an iron-like grip. Shanxiang steps in with a deceptive smile, throwing an arm around Lusheng to divert his attention. He insists on dragging the young master away for a special vintage, effectively neutralizing the immediate threat to Mingyu. Lu Qian leans in close, her voice a low hiss as she warns Mingyu about their uncle's lethal temper. She pulls out her phone to reveal a compromising photo of Mingyu with Hisong, hoping to use it as leverage. The insults grow sharper as Lu Qian dismisses her cousin as a worthless pawn in their family's game. She threatens to have Mingyu confined or even physically harmed if she dares to refuse the upcoming toast. Mingyu remains utterly unfazed, meeting the threats with a cold, piercing gaze that challenges Lu Qian's authority. Lu Qian's rage peaks as she screams a final, vile insult at Mingyu's mother in front of the entire hallway. A chilling smirk plays on Mingyu's lips as she quietly tells her sister to prepare for her own downfall. Turning her back on the toxicity, Mingyu asks Suayu to help her arrange a quick exit from the estate. The two friends move toward the exit, leaving the fuming Lu Qian behind in the shadows of the lounge. Once outside, Mingyu reveals the high-tech phone she received, admitting it came from a powerful new boss. Suayu fusses over her like a protective sister, warning her that the men in this city always have hidden motives. They share a final farewell on the sidewalk, promising to stay in constant contact via the new secure line. Mingyu's attention is drawn to a sleek luxury car idling nearby, where a familiar figure stands waiting. Xiuming leans against the car frame with a casual dominance, his eyes tracking her every movement. Without wasting any time on pleasantries, he issues a direct command for her to get into the vehicle. She pauses for a heartbeat, weighing the risks of stepping into the tycoon's inner circle. Ultimately, she decides to take the gamble and slips into the plush leather interior of the car. His associate watches the exchange from the side, noting that Mingyu still seems agitated by their earlier encounter. Xiuming absorbs the information with a stoic expression, his mind already calculating his next move. The engine roars to life as the car peels away from the curb, disappearing into the neon-lit streets. Inside the quiet cabin, Mingyu keeps her focus on the encrypted device, ignoring the man behind the wheel. A small, appreciative smile touches Xiuming's face as he finds her stoic defiance deeply intriguing. Mingyu wonders if his confidence stems from a lack of fear or a deep understanding of her character. He finally breaks the silence, asking if she still holds a grudge over being locked in the private room. She looks him directly in the eyes and clarifies that her anger isn't directed at him personally. Xiuming listens intently, realizing that her sense of justice is as sharp as her wit. She questions why he didn't suggest a more permanent lodging arrangement given the danger she faces at home. He keeps his eyes on the road, carefully considering the implications of bringing her deeper into his world. As the car glides through the night, Mingyu breaks the silence by asking for the lounge's official closing time. She shifts her focus to the security layout, questioning the exact range of the establishment's surveillance cameras. Xiuming watches her intently, noting that while the interior is covered, the private outdoor area remains a blind spot. Mingyu maintains a cool distance, claiming she was never seen with anyone outdoors and doesn't even know who he is. Xiuming's eyes narrow in amusement, wondering if she truly believes he is someone who should be hidden from the world. The luxury vehicle continues its smooth journey toward the Lu family estate under the cover of darkness. She plays the part of the perfect daughter, insisting that a good girl, like herself, would never participate in a secret late-night rendezvous. Spotting the estate's security perimeter, she commands him to stop the car before they reach the upcoming camera. Xiuming reaches over to unlock the door, his movements deliberate as he prepares for her departure. Just as she reaches for the handle, his hand darts out with lightning speed to catch her wrist. He pulls her back into the cabin, audaciously suggesting they ditch the formal act for late-night snacks or a private boat ride. His gaze locks onto hers, a silent promise hanging in the air that there is simply no way for her to escape his reach. Mingyu remains stoic in the face of his intensity, her mind already calculating the risks of his overwhelming persistence. She firmly repeats her intent to leave, while Xiuming offers to step out and open the door for her with mock chivalry. She quickly places a hand on his, warning him to stay inside the vehicle to avoid being caught on camera. Mingyu slips out of the car and disappears into the shadows as the window rolls down behind her. Xiuming watches her go, his brow furrowed as he realizes her strange questions about surveillance point to a much deeper problem. Stepping into the main hall, Mingyu is immediately met by the chilling, judgmental glare of her uncle. Lu Qiuliang looks her up and down with disdain, demanding to know where she acquired such an elegant dress. He forbids her from ever wearing the garment again, his voice dripping with authority as he demands an account of her night. Mingyu keeps her head high, calmly explaining that Lu Qian was the one who dragged her to the lounge. The mention of the high-end club causes her uncle to tighten his grip on his prayer beads in a display of repressed anger. She explains that she returned early to show respect, leaving her cousin behind to continue drinking with the elite. His eyes sharpen behind his glasses as he asks specifically which high-status guest she was forced to toast. When she mentions young Master Hao, her uncle is visibly taken aback by the success of the social maneuvering. He probes further into her her arrival, and she lies effortlessly, claiming a common taxi brought her to the gates. The roar of a powerful engine echoes from the street, but Mingyu dismisses it as just another random sports car passing through the neighborhood. Despite her compliance, he punishes her perceived rebellion by ordering her to copy traditional moral precepts twice before morning. Once safely in her bedroom, Mingyu carefully conceals the encrypted phone Xiuming gave her, her only lifeline to the outside world. She stares at the device with a mixture of hope and caution, silently pleading for Xiuming to prove he is worth her trust. In the study, a family aide reports the findings of his investigation, confirming that Mingyu appeared to arrive home entirely alone. Unsatisfied, Lu Mingyu demands the direct contact information for the club to verify every detail of her story. Over at the lounge, the manager is overwhelmed by the sudden, massive demand for the evening's CCTV footage. Zhan Xiang delivers the grim news that the Lu family has officially requested the tapes to track Mingyu's movements. Xiuming stands nearby, his expression turning to stone as he realizes the net is closing in on his partner. His eyes burn with a cold determination, already formulating a plan to wipe the digital trail before the Lu family can find a single clue. Aunt Duan aggressively pulls Mingyu forward, demanding she face the family and reveal the truth behind her lies. Mingyu stumbles as she is forcefully dragged into the center of the room, her expression remaining remarkably calm, despite the rough treatment. Outside, the moon hangs high over the Lu estate, casting a cold glow over the brewing family confrontation. The entire Lu family is assembled in the opulent living room, creating a suffocating atmosphere of judgment and suspicion. Lu Qian steps forward with a deceptive air of concern, claiming that the gathering was a strictly private event where everyone was accounted for. Lu Qiang remains silent, his focus entirely on the ritual of preparing his tea as he listens to the unfolding accusations. He takes a slow, methodical sip, the steam from the cup obscuring his eyes as he questions if Mingyu was acting as a mere escort for the night. Lu Qian continues her performance, insisting that the toast with Hao Lushing was unavoidable, and that the glasses contain nothing but harmless juice. Mingyu suddenly interjects, shocking her cousin by flatly stating that she did, in fact, consume the drink offered to her. The room erupts into a new wave of accusations as the family questions her motives for drinking in private after He-song led her away. Lu Lin looms over Mingyu with a predatory intensity, demanding she explain the exact nature of her relationship with the lounge manager. He thrusts his phone forward, displaying the incriminating photo of He-song escorting Mingyu through the lounge's private exit. Lu Qian points at the screen, fueling the fire by highlighting that the two of them were missing for over 30 minutes. Aunt Duwenren scoffs at Mingyu, labeling her behavior as completely beneath the standards of a well-bred lady. Qiuyang's patience finally snaps, and he barks an order for his men to secure the lounge's surveillance footage immediately. A heavy silence falls over the room as the patriarch's decree signals a looming digital investigation into her every move. Lu Qian leans in to whisper a final, venomous threat, telling Mingyu that she is officially dead meat once the tapes arrive. Mingyu remains stoic, her internal resolve hardening like steel against the wave of hostility surrounding her. Qiuyang dismisses her with a cold wave of his hand, ordering her to return to her room while Lu Qian stays behind. He commands her to copy the traditional moral precepts for women twice over, expecting the task to be completed before her brother returns. Mingyu retreats to the isolation of her bedroom, the door clicking shut on the toxic world outside. She grips a pen tightly, the physical strain of the task beginning to take a visible toll on her steady hands. Because her right shoulder is throbbing with pain, she is forced to switch the pen to her left hand to continue the grueling work. 20 minutes later, she finally sets the pen down, exhaling a long breath of exhaustion as the pages are filled. A sudden vibration catches her attention, drawing her eyes toward the bedside table, where her secret phone lies hidden. She carefully reaches for the encrypted device, her heart racing as she checks for any news from the outside. The screen illuminates with urgent messages from Sayu about the surveillance hunt, followed by a short, steadying text from Xiuming. She gazes at the screen, her eyes softening as she reads Xiuming's simple command to not be afraid. She traces the letters of his name with her thumb, finding a strange sense of comfort in his hidden presence. Mingyu tucks the phone away and gathers her papers, her expression hardening into a mask of professional indifference once more. She returns to the living room and presents the completed work to her uncle, standing tall despite the late hour. Qiuyang barely glances at the pages before violently throwing them back at her, the sheets fluttering through the air like broken wings. He bellows in rage, accusing her of showing total disrespect by submitting the work in a messy, cursive script. Mingyu remains composed as she explains that a recent shoulder injury prevented her from maintaining her usual calligraphic precision. Aunt Duwenren reacts with explosive anger, feeling personally attacked by the implication that her earlier rough handling caused the injury. Mingyu looks down, her voice a whisper of feigned vulnerability as she admits she can no longer even hold a pen correctly. Qiuyang stares at her with a mixture of annoyance and disbelief, mockingly remarking on how delicate the eldest daughter has become. He dismisses her with a final, sharp gesture, allowing her to walk away from the interrogation circle. He turns to his assistant and coldly instructs him to arrange a hospital visit for the following morning to verify her claims. Lu Qian watches her go with a predatory smirk, knowing that while the physical punishment is over, the real trap is about to spring. Her eyes trail down to the scattered papers on the floor, her mind already racing toward the arrival of the surveillance tapes. A heavy finger strikes the enter key, initiating the playback of the evidence that will decide Mingyu's fate. The Lu family gathers around the glowing laptop screen, their eyes narrowed as they prepare to witness her supposed disgrace. Standing at the edge of the room, Mingyu clutches her throbbing arm, her expression a mask of icy calm despite the mounting pressure. With a sharp click of the mouse, the manager navigates to the specific timestamp of the evening's events. The surveillance feed flickers to life, showing a grainy but clear image of Mingyu standing perfectly still in the lounge's corridor. The footage continues, showing a man pass her by without so much as a second glance, completely contradicting the accusations of a private meeting. A different angle reveals Mingyu back in the main hall, maintaining a strictly professional demeanor as she socializes with the other guests. A collective gasp of shock ripples through the room as the family realize their smoking gun has completely vanished. Lu Qian's face pales in disbelief, her mind racing to understand how the digital timestamps and content could have been altered so flawlessly. The screen displays a clear shot of Mingyu partaking in a public toast, proving she was never missing for the 30 minutes, Lu Qian claimed. Panicked and desperate, Lu Qian shrieks that the video is a sophisticated forgery meant to deceive them all. Lu Lin looks at his sister with newfound disdain, asking how she can continue to lie when the audio and video evidence are right in front of them. Mingyu remains silent, letting the expertly doctored footage do the talking, while Lu Qian fruitlessly argues that such an edit would be impossible to pull off in 10 minutes. Aunt Du Wenren sinks back, her face contorting with the realization that their trap has snapped shut on their own fingers. The patriarch's fury finally boils over as he slams his hand onto the table, his prayer beads clattering against the wood like gunfire. Lu Qian trembles before her father's shadow, her voice cracking as she begins a pathetic plea for forgiveness. Ignoring her tears, Qiuliang lunges forward and seizes his daughter's wrist with a grip that promises a painful reckoning. Du Wenren rushes to intervene, her voice shrill with terror as she begs her husband to release his hold on their child. Mingyu watches the family tear itself apart from the shadows, her eyes reflecting a cold satisfaction at the chaos she's unleashed. Safely back in the sanctuary of her room, Mingyu's secret phone vibrates with a new check-in from her hidden ally. Across the city, Xiuming sits in the dim light of his office, his focus entirely on ensuring Mingyu's safety from afar. He sends over a location pin for a quiet Cantonese restaurant, offering her a rare moment of respite from the family's toxicity. She stares at the invitation, her usual defenses softening as she considers the risk of meeting him in public. Her fingers fly across the digital keyboard, explaining that a hospital visit and her uncle's volatile temper make a meeting impossible for now. She pauses over the final sentence, weighing whether to reveal just how close she came to a total disaster tonight. Overwhelmed by the day's mental toll, she finally collapses onto her desk, the weight of her double life pressing down on her. Back at the lounge, the elite technical team signals that the digital scrub is complete, leaving no trace of the original footage. Shan Xiang leans against the door, watching his brother with a smirk as he marvels at the lengths Xiuming will go for a single woman. He scoffs at the Lu family's pettiness, noting that they are driving themselves into ruin over such insignificant power plays. Xiuming raises his glass in a silent toast, his movements fluid and full of a dangerous, quiet confidence. He remains focused on the long game, knowing that his intervention has bought Mingyu the time she needs to plan her next move. Zhan Xiang wonders aloud how a woman raised in such a suffocating, hostile environment could still possess such a fierce spirit. Xiuming stares into the amber liquid of his drink, his expression unreadable as he contemplates the mystery of the woman he's chosen to protect. The next morning arrives with a clinical chill as Mingyu finds herself at the hospital pharmacy to verify her injury. Standing outside the facility, she realizes she's far too exhausted and hungry to navigate the morning rush hour alone. A sudden, familiar shout cuts through the noise of the traffic, making her turn in surprise. Her old high school classmate, Xiang Yi, waves energetically from the window of a luxury car idling at the curb. The two women share a brief, surprised reunion on the busy sidewalk, the tension of the previous night momentarily forgotten. Xiang Yi insists that Mingyu get into the car, refusing to take no for an answer when it comes to a much-needed meal. Mingyu hesitates for a heartbeat, looking back at the hospital before deciding to accept the unexpected lifeline. They soon arrive at a sun-drenched outdoor terrace, where the atmosphere is a world away from the Lu estate's gloom. As Mingyu settles into her chair, her gaze drifts to the horizon, still wary of the shadows that follow her every step. Bai Wentao, an old high school classmate, approaches the table with a sheepish apology for his late arrival. He joins the group as Zhang Yai playfully reminds Mingyu how he used to hover around her desk every single day. A nostalgic smile touches his lips as he recalls visiting her twice a day, just to catch a glimpse of her work. Mingyu searches the depths of her memory, her gaze distant as she tries to place the face from her past. She bluntly admits she has no recollection of him, casting a brief, awkward shadow over the table's conversation. Xiang Yi quickly laughs it off, noting that Mingyu was always far too buried in her drawings to notice the world around her. Bai Wento remains undeterred, offering a warm compliment on her timeless beauty as the first course is served. When Xiang Yi probes about her current relationship status, Mingyu offers a flat, immediate denial. The peaceful meal is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of another acquaintance, Sang Qi, who spots them from across the terrace. Mingyu remains focused on her meal, maintaining a quiet dignity amidst the rising social chatter. Sang Qi greets the group with high energy, surprised to find her former classmates dining in the city. Xiang Yi questions why Sang Qi isn't in the capital, learning she relocated to support her partner's professional career. Sang Qi explains she is meeting other college friends nearby and offers a quick, polite farewell to the group. Xiang Yi waves her off, telling her friend not to worry about the timing of the meal. Just as the group settles back into their rhythm, a sleek vehicle pulls up to the curb, drawing silent attention. Inside the car, Xiuming watches the scene with a cold, analytical gaze that suggests he is not pleased. He observes Mingyu sharing a professional meal with the male classmate, his jaw tightening at the sight. Xiang notices the shift in the atmosphere and nervously pleads for his brother to remain calm. Xiuming scoffs at the suggestion, masking his irritation with a facade of cold, detached indifference. His eyes narrow into slits as he focuses on the specific details of the group's interaction. He remembers the exact message he sent her the previous night, only for her to decline his invitation. The sight of her dining with someone else after claiming she needed to stay home fuels his silent frustration. He steps out of the luxury vehicle, his polished shoes striking the pavement with a sense of impending confrontation. He slams the car door with a sharp metallic crack, making his presence known to everyone on the terrace. Xiuming marches toward the table with an overwhelming aura of authority that silences the surrounding diners. He stares directly at Mingyu, his expression questioning her previous claims of needing to stay out of trouble. He looms over the unsuspecting Bai Wentao, silently evaluating the competition with a predatory intensity. His dark energy creates a visible wave of discomfort, causing the classmates to shrink back in their seats. Mingyu finally looks up, her composure momentarily slipping as she realizes who has interrupted their brunch. Xiuming greets her with a chillingly calm voice, remarking on the sheer coincidence of their meeting at this specific restaurant. She maintains a professional distance, confirming that she is simply catching up over a meal. Her mind races back to the encrypted messages where she insisted she had to maintain a low profile for a few days. Xiuming shoots a final, lethal glance toward the classmate, clearly unimpressed by the man's presence. Mingyu attempts to explain the accidental nature of the reunion, her voice remaining steady under his gaze. Without a word of explanation, Xiuming holds out his hand and demands that she surrender her phone immediately. Bai Wento watches the exchange in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the dynamic between Mingyu and this powerful stranger. Xiuming provides her with a new, secure device and a cryptic password before turning to head back to his car. The table is left in a state of total shock, the classmates staring at Mingyu as they struggle to process the interruption. Xiuming holds out a sleek, encrypted device, instructing her to use the password, "Good girl," to access its secured interface. Back at the table, Xiang Yi and Bai Wentao sit in a stunned stupor, unable to fathom the high-stakes drama that just unfolded before them. Bai Wentao's voice trembles with confusion as he questions the sheer audacity of a man who hands over a personal phone with such a cryptic command. Xiang Yi leans in close, her eyes wide with curiosity as she whispers a demand to know the true identity of the mysterious stranger. Mingyu maintains her icy composure, offering a dismissive and vague answer that provides no real insight into her connection with Xiuming. Outside the restaurant, Xiuming catches up with Xiang and sharply demands the keys to the vehicle along with the takeout order. Xiang wordlessly hands over the car keys and a small bag of buns, his expression a mix of bewilderment and resignation. He watches his brother with a heavy gaze, realizing that the cold and calculating Xiuming has undergone a drastic change. Xiang marvels at the sight of a powerful tycoon choosing to sit in a car eating simple street food, just to wait for a woman to finish her meal. Xiuming cuts the observation short, coldly dismissing his brother and reclaiming his solitary focus on the task at hand. He settles into the driver's seat, the dim lighting of the car accentuating the sharp, dangerous lines of his profile. A flicker of self-awareness crosses his face as he wonders if his recent behavior has become uncharacteristically volatile. Bai Wento continues his interrogation at the table, pressing Mingyu on whether the man is her boyfriend, only to be met with a sharp "not yet." The group attempts to finish their brunch, though the atmosphere remains thick with the lingering tension of Xiuming's interruption. Bai Wento warns her that 3 months is far too little time to trust someone, especially a man who looked ready to resort to violence just moments ago. Mingyu's eyes narrow with irritation, her patience for her old classmate's unsolicited advice rapidly reaching its breaking point. She shuts him down with a clinical coldness, making it clear that his nosy behavior is unwelcome and overstepping his bounds. Both Xiang Yi and Bai Wento shrink back under her glare, realizing that the delicate artist has a spine of pure tempered steel. Once the meal concludes, Mingyu and Xiang Yi walk away from the terrace, leaving the awkward reunion behind them. Sang-ki watches from a distance, noting Mingyu's departure and speculating to her companion that the artist is caught in a complicated situationship. Her friend reacts with genuine shock, struggling to process the idea of the reserved Mingyu being involved with such a powerful figure. Xiuming steps out to meet her, his movements fluid and deceptively gentle as he guides Mingyu toward the passenger side of the car. Sang-ki's eyes widen as she recognizes the rare, dark green sports car, knowing there is only one such vehicle in the entire city of Zaizi. She stares at Xiuming's striking profile, her mind racing to connect the dots of who this man truly is. Mingyu settles into the luxurious interior, the soft glow of the dashboard illuminating her tired features. She places the bag of buns on her lap, the simple gesture feeling strangely domestic in the midst of their chaotic dynamic. Xiuming shifts the gears with a practiced, aggressive motion, the tension in the cabin reaching a boiling point. The engine roars to life as the high-end vehicle streaks through the city streets, a blur of neon lights and raw power. He breaks the silence with a low, demanding tone, ordering her to explain the coincidence of her presence at the restaurant. Xiuming's gaze remains fixed on the road, his jaw set in a hard line as he waits for her to account for her earlier lies. Mingyu stares out the window at the passing traffic, her silence serving as a shield against his mounting interrogation. She eventually reveals that she met a high school classmate at the hospital entrance and was simply brought along for a meal. Xiuming's focus shifts instantly, his voice dripping with suspicion as he questions what business she had at a medical facility. She gestures toward her shoulder, reminding him that her hand and arm are still suffering from the previous night's physical strain. The mention of her injury causes a flicker of genuine concern to break through Xiuming's wall of jealousy and anger. He immediately pivots the conversation, demanding to know if the classmate she was dining with was a man or a woman. His grip on the steering wheel tightens as he warns her that if it was a man, his urge to resort to physical confrontation will be impossible to ignore. Mingyu asks if he truly has violent tendencies, to which he responds with a dark and immediate confirmation. He presses her further, his voice laced with possessive frustration as he asks why she would choose to leave with a male classmate alone. Xiuming demands a direct answer, his authority filling the small space of the car like a physical weight. Mingyu turns to face him, her expression hardening as she prepares to challenge his overbearing sense of control. Xiuming's eyes burn with a mix of fury and obsession, his lips curling into a taunting smile as he waits for her reaction. She finally snaps, asking him exactly who he thinks he is to be acting so controlling over her every movement and acquaintance. Mingyu's eyes flash with a mix of annoyance and curiosity as she challenges the man looming over her. Xiuming leans in with a dangerous smirk, daring her to finish her thought about his overbearing nature. She doesn't back down, demanding to know what right he has to dictate who she spends her time with while they're in the car. The tycoon falls into a momentary silence, his gaze softening as he realizes he can't actually argue with her logic. His possessive streak flares up again, as he asks if the classmate was a man, threatening to turn the car around and settle the score personally. Mingyu lets out a weary sigh, clarifying that her companion was actually a girl, and that his jealousy is misplaced. A visible wave of relief washes over Xiuming's face as he decides the situation is finally acceptable. They arrive at the exclusive Lakeview apartments, where Xiuming firmly guides her toward the private entrance. Their footsteps echo in sync across the polished floor as they transition from the public street to his private sanctuary. He notes her boldness for stepping into his domain, his voice dropping to a low, mocking tone. Mingyu strikes back with a reminder of their complicated history, effectively silencing his taunts with a single sentence. The heavy doors click shut behind them, sealing the duo away from the prying eyes of the city. She scans the luxurious interior, her mind racing to stay one step ahead of his unpredictable moods. The high-tech security system chirps with a successful entry notification as he secures the perimeter. Xiuming maintains a firm grip on her arm, casually suggesting that she should make herself at home more often. He stops and fixates on her neck, his analytical gaze making her skin crawl with a sudden, sharp intensity. Mingyu questions his strange focus, only for him to mention a biological curiosity about her physical state. He leans in close to explain his clinical interest, noting that he missed the opportunity to examine her thoroughly before. With a final nudge, he directs her further into the living area to begin the necessary medical checkup. Xiuming wastes no time, bluntly instructing her to remove her outer layer so he can inspect the bruising on her shoulder. He carefully adjusts her posture on the sofa, ensuring she is positioned correctly for the application of the medicine. A look of genuine surprise crosses his face when he realizes how much she actually values this bit of medical attention. Standing tall, he advises her to begin a strict fitness regimen to improve her overall physical resilience. He looms over her once more, arguing that her lack of stamina will prevent her from fully benefiting from her training. Mingyu looks up at him with a skeptical expression, wondering if his advice is purely literal or part of some larger scheme. Xiuming keeps his face a mask of calm professionalism, his eyes never wavering from her own. She turns her head away, processing the unexpected turn their afternoon has taken. He gestures toward her lower leg, asking if she prefers to handle the application of the ointment herself. He reaches down and pulls back the fabric, revealing a nasty bruise that she had been trying to hide all morning. Mingyu is stunned by his observation skills, wondering how he managed to detect her hidden injury so easily. He explains that his lifelong training has made him hypersensitive to even the smallest changes in a person's movement and posture. As he prepares to treat the injury, she asks if his heightened senses come from being a professional fighter. Xiuming confirms his prowess, admitting that he has to be incredibly careful not to accidentally break her bones when he touches her. Mingyu reaches out, her fingers brushing against his as she tries to intercept the device before he finishes his modifications. She looks him in the eye and pointedly asks if the phone's anti-tracking software is meant to hide her from everyone, including him. Xiuming's expression darkens instantly as he demands to know if she's already plotting to find another man behind his back. He commands her to speak and answer him, but she stubbornly refuses to indulge his jealous interrogation. Ignoring her defiance for a moment, he meticulously begins the technical process of swapping her SIM card into the secure handset. Mingyu watches his steady hands, realizing she has truly never encountered a man as complex and unpredictable as him. She observes how he maintains a razor-sharp focus on the task, marveling at his ability to suppress such a volatile temper. Her gaze lingers on him, noting that despite his terrifying physical power, he possesses an almost uncanny level of restraint. Xiuming's eyes flicker with a sudden intensity as he completes the setup, sensing her silent scrutiny on his profile. He stands before her with the finished device in hand, the atmosphere in the room heavy with the weight of unsaid words. He tells her to stop overthinking and worrying, his voice dropping to a low, strangely reassuring tone. He extends his arm to hand over the phone, the vast, sunlit apartment framing their quiet, professional standoff. Mingyu takes the device and wonders aloud what would happen if she used this high-tech tool to vanish completely. The temperature in the room seems to drop as Xiuming asks with lethal seriousness if she really wants to test that theory. Sensing the shift in his energy, she quickly backtracks, claiming her question was nothing more than a passing curiosity. Xiuming crosses his arms, asserting that no matter how many times she hides, he has the resources to find her again and again. He makes his intentions clear, reminding her that he is actively pursuing her, and that she is free to reject him. He adds with cold confidence that he is a man of his word and doesn't need to rely on cheap tricks to keep her by his side. Mingyu searches his gaze, trying to find a single crack in his armor of absolute certainty and control. He scoops up the bag of food, signaling that it's finally time for them to leave his private sanctuary. As they head out, he notices her distraction and offers to switch vehicles if the mechanical noise of the modified sports car is too much. He leans in close, explaining that the luxury Mercedes is far more suited for a discreet return to the Lu estate. Mingyu realizes that to a man of his stature, these multi-million-dollar machines are nothing more than disposable toys. The sleek sedan glides through the darkness, eventually pulling up to the imposing, silent gates of her family home. Inside the quiet cabin, Xiuming checks the perimeter to ensure they've stopped well outside the reach of the surveillance cameras. Mingyu steps out onto the pavement, the sharp click of her heels echoing in the stillness of the night. Before she can leave, he issues a final command, insisting that their next meal be a private affair for just the two of them. He watches her from the driver's seat, his gaze following her every move as she prepares to face her family again. She looks back over her shoulder and gives a soft, affirmative response that seems to satisfy him for the time being. Safely back in her bedroom, Mingyu locks the door and immediately pulls out the new phone to check her secure messages. She reads a frantic exchange with Shu Sayu, desperate to know if her brother has mentioned her recent disappearance. She stares at the screen in silence, relieved to find that the truth of her situation hasn't leaked out to the wrong people yet. She finally collapses onto her bed, the weight of the day's high-stakes events finally catching up to her exhausted body. Staring at the ceiling, she finds herself unable to stop thinking about the true nature of the man who just dropped her off. She recalls the terrifying precision of his strength and the sheer opulence of his lifestyle, wondering who Duan Xiuming really is. She types his family name into a search bar and is met with shocking headlines regarding a brutal power struggle within the Duan Empire. Mingyu taps through the official records of the Duan family's elite. She notes the main heir's refined demeanor, a stark contrast to her own family's crude behavior. This man possesses a natural nobility that Lu Qiuliang could never replicate. Her screen scrolls further, yet Xiuming's name remains conspicuously absent from the core list. She spots the name Duan Xiushi tucked away in the margins of the genealogy. Suspicion clouds her eyes as she questions the connection between this stranger and Xiuming. Sitting in the dim light of her room, she ponders Xiuming's claim of being the second young master. If he belongs to a marginalized branch, his power and resources are even more mysterious. She wonders if she's dealing with a discarded relative or a hidden powerhouse waiting to strike. A message from Xiang Yi interrupts her thoughts, apologizing for the awkwardness at lunch. Mingyu sends a dismissive sticker, keeping Xiuming's true identity a closely guarded secret. She sets the device aside, the weight of her research lingering in the quiet air. Gazing out the window, the isolation of the Lu estate feels heavier than ever. ever. The moon hangs high above the trees, a silent witness to her internal turmoil. Her heart aches with the distance separating her from her ailing grandmother. Below, the sprawling mansion remains a cold and unwelcoming fortress. She approaches the heavy, locked gates that keep her family's secrets sealed tight. Despair flickers across her face as she stares at the barriers preventing her escape. The cold metal of the lock serves as a grim reminder of her current captivity. Lu Qian suddenly emerges from the shadows, brandishing a belt and demanding answers about the security cameras. Mingyu stands her ground, her gaze hardening against her sister's unhinged aggression. Qian sneers at Mingyu's healed hands, baffled by her rapid recovery from previous abuse. The spoiled heiress bristles with rage, her face contorting at Mingyu's silent defiance. She raises the belt high, threatening to unleash a brutal assault before their father returns. The weapon crashes down, shattering a priceless tea set as Mingyu narrowly evades the blow. Adrenaline surges through her as she realizes she must outmaneuver this violent outburst. Mingyu retreats toward the main hall, leading the enraged Qian into a trap of her own making. Qian freezes in shock as she realizes the magnitude of the destruction she just caused. A cold, calculating smile touches Mingyu's lips as the tables begin to turn. The living room is in shambles, littered with the wreckage of expensive decor. Mingyu calls for the butler, ensuring there are witnesses to Qian's latest moment of madness. She recalls the many nights spent alone on the floor, tending to wounds inflicted by this family. Those memories of pain fuel a new, icy resolve within her eyes. She acknowledges that every member of the Lu household is driven by a legacy of violence. Images of past beatings at the hands of her siblings flash through her mind. She remembers her aunt's murderous intent, a constant shadow over her life in this house. Lu Qiang arrives and erupts in fury, dismissing the entire family as useless trash for their incompetence. Mingyu watches the chaotic argument, unimpressed by the mere verbal scolding they receive. A simple lecture is far from the retribution she truly desires for her suffering. She pulls out her new phone, ready to play her most dangerous card. She greets Xiuming with a steady voice, initiating a move that will change everything. Mingyu limps toward the waiting car, her every step a testament to the physical toll her family has taken on her. From the driver's seat, Xiuming watches her approach, his sharp eyes immediately picking up on her uneven and pained gait. Her face is a mask of exhaustion and lingering hurt as she nears the vehicle, struggling to maintain her composure. Xiuming reaches across the interior, his hand gripping the handle to swing the door open for her. As soon as she settles into the seat, he cuts straight to the point, demanding to know if her relatives have been hitting her again. Mingyu looks at him in stunned silence, caught off guard by how easily he read the situation. A heavy silence fills the cabin as they lock eyes, the air crackling with a new level of intensity. Xiuming's jaw sets firmly as he processes her silence, his mind flashing back to the previous injuries he's already treated. He leans in closer, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register as he declares that such punishment for a grown woman is far from normal. He asks for her exact age, his focus shifting toward a more protective and calculated stance. She answers that she is 24, her voice steady despite the chaos of her domestic life. She watches his reaction closely, seeing a flicker of something deeply personal behind his cold exterior. Looking away, she admits with a hint of sadness that a family without such violence is a luxury she has never known. Xiuming reaches out and gently tilts her face toward his, demanding to know exactly how long this cycle of abuse has lasted. She finally breaks her silence, revealing that she has been enduring their cruelty for over a decade. A wave of cold, simmering fury washes over Xiuming's features as he realizes the depth of her suffering. He speaks her name softly, the weight of his next words promising to change the trajectory of her life forever. Without a hint of hesitation, he looks her in the eye and asks if she is ready to get married. Mingyu stares back at him, breathless, as he formally offers himself as her husband and protector. She quickly calculates the move, realizing that while it's sudden, his power is the ultimate weapon against her father. Xiuming's gaze remains fixed on her as he explains that the Duan family operates under a code of absolute protection. He asserts with ironclad authority that once she is his wife, no one in the world will ever be allowed to harm her again. He leans back, promising that he will safeguard her future with every resource at his disposal. Mingyu's eyes reflect the gravity of the proposal, knowing the Lu family could never stand against a powerhouse like the Duans. He instructs her to wait for just 1 month while he clears the path for their official union. He reaches for his phone, his fingers already moving to coordinate the high-stakes logistics of a billionaire's wedding. He mentions that while he intended for his brother to assist, the current internal family strife has complicated matters. Mingyu nods, well aware that the Duan Empire is currently a battlefield of shifting loyalties and power plays. They discuss his brother Duan Xiuming, confirming that the two share a bond of absolute trust in a world of enemies. She wonders aloud if they are truly compatible, but he dismisses the notion of compatibility as something they will simply force to work. When she brings up her criminal record as a potential deal-breaker, he scoffs at the idea that such a thing could stop him. He explains the terrifyingly permanent nature of his family's tradition, where marriage is a lifelong sentence with no escape. He takes her hand in a firm grip, emphasizing that this absolute commitment is an ancestral rule that cannot be broken. His tone shifts to one of possessive warning, making it clear that once she carries his name, Her loyalty must be absolute. The car glides through the night, the two of them now bound by a contract that is as much a rescue mission as it is a merger. Despite the gravity of the situation, Mingyu can't help but point out the irony of his sudden moral high ground after how they first met. The sleek black sedan pulls smoothly to a stop in front of a warm, bustling hot pot restaurant. Xiuming leads the way inside, the staff offering a polite welcome as the duo enters the inviting establishment. The interior is filled with the comforting aroma of spices and traditional decor, triggering a wave of nostalgia for Mingyu. They take their seats at a sturdy wooden table, the atmosphere far removed from the cold tension of the Lu estate. Xiuming reaches across the table to take her hand, marveling at how delicate her fingers seem for an artist. Mingyu meets his gaze calmly, noting that her hands only need enough strength to guide a brush, not a weapon. He continues to inspect her hand with a curious, almost clinical fascination, noting the fairness of her skin. She corrects him, pointing out the thick calluses she's developed from years of dedicated practice with her brushes. He rests his chin on his hand, asking with a hint of a challenge if she finds his own hands too rough for her liking. He goes as far as to offer to change any part of himself she finds unsatisfactory, his intensity unwavering. Seeing her lack of response, he wonders aloud why she seems to have absolutely no demands for him. A rare, soft smile plays on his lips as he remarks on how surprisingly well-behaved she is being. Mingyu remains silent, her inner thoughts darkening as she rejects the idea of being a good person. The hot pot begins to bubble vigorously, and Xiuming immediately starts serving her the best cuts of meat. He piles her plate high with food, insisting that she eat her fill while everything is still hot. The rich scent of the meal fills her senses, momentarily distracting her from the weight of her past. For a fleeting second, she remembers a time 10 years ago when her own parents treated her with such gentle care. She envisions her mother and father as they used to be, always ensuring she had the first bite of every dish they shared. The memory sours as it shifts to the cold, oppressive dining room of the Lu family after her life fell apart. She recalls the lonely meals where she was forced to finish every scrap, treated more like a burden than a daughter. Xiuming notices her sudden distance and pulls her back to the present with a sharp, observant look. She quickly brushes off her distraction and addresses him formally as young Master Duan while he pours more tea. He stops her immediately, insisting that she use a more intimate name or refer to him as her future husband. Mingyu questions where he learned to be so attentive, wondering if he has a history of taking care of women. He leans in with a piercing gaze, asking if her curiosity is actually a sign of growing jealousy. She denies it flatly, but he assures her that there are no other women in his life to worry about. He explains that his understanding of relationships comes solely from observing the devotion between his brother and sister-in-law. As he feeds her a morsel of food, he asks if he's allowed to make a few requests now that they are officially together. His eyes fixate on her with a predatory focus as he begins to list the boundaries of their new arrangement. He leans dangerously close to her face, promising that while he expects affection, he will wait until she is fully recovered before asking for anything more. Mingyu watches Xiuming with a skeptical gaze, surprised that he hasn't forbidden her from seeing other men yet. Xiuming admits he wants to impose that rule, but he knows her defiant nature would only make her rebel more. The hot pot continues to simmer between them as the conversation shifts toward her lack of self-awareness. He leans in with a sharp look, questioning if she's really not afraid of his legendary temper. Mingyu smiles softly, teasingly asking if his only solution is to beat up every man she speaks to. Xiuming sets his chopsticks down, arguing that since he has no female friends, she shouldn't have male ones either. His expression hardens into a mask of absolute authority as he officially declares all other men not allowed. He brings up the man he saw her with at the lounge, demanding to know who was bothering her that day. Now that they are official, Xiuming looms over her to properly interrogate her about her social circle. He returns to serving the meal, carefully placing more food into the boiling pot to ensure she's well fed. Mingyu takes a bite of the food he prepared, reflecting on his incredibly domineering and possessive nature. Despite his many flaws, she admits to herself that his sincerity makes it impossible for her to turn him away. By 10 p.m., the city lights glow around the parked sports car as their high-stakes dinner concludes. Back in the car, Mingyu mentions Zhan Shang's recent movements and asks Xiuming for a technical favor regarding a phone. She pulls out a device, asking if he can remotely trigger water damage to sabotage her sister's evidence. Xiuming takes the phone with a confident smirk, claiming he only needs 2 minutes to complete the hack. Mingyu watches him intently, her eyes filled with a mix of calculation and burgeoning trust. He focuses entirely on the task, his thumbs flying across the screen as he executes the digital sabotage. He hands the phone back, confirming the job is done with a look of quiet satisfaction. The atmosphere in the car shifts as Xiuming leans in, his gaze locking onto hers with renewed intensity. Mingyu looks at him with wide eyes, wondering what move he plans to make next in their professional partnership. He issues a direct, hushed command, asking her to lean in and bridge the remaining distance between them. He gently cups her face, his hand providing a steady anchor as he maintains their close proximity. The two share a quiet moment of technical alignment, their faces inches apart in the dim light of the cabin. He draws her into a firm, protective embrace, ensuring she feels the weight of his absolute commitment. Outside, a woman storms through the street, cursing a shameless bastard under her breath. Xiuming holds Mingyu tight against his chest, his expression one of cold, focused determination. Mingyu closes her eyes, finally allowing herself to lean into the strength of her new protector. Lu Qian stands on the sidewalk, spotting the suspicious vehicle and preparing to confront whoever is inside. Her face contorts with malicious joy as she realizes she has finally caught Mingyu in a compromising position. Qian laughs triumphantly, believing she now holds the solid proof needed to finish Mingyu once and for all. Lu Qian frantically mashes the power button on her phone, but the screen remains a cold, dead void thanks to Xiuming's digital sabotage. She rushes toward the vehicle, but Xiuming remains composed, calmly instructing Mingyu that she should head back inside first to avoid suspicion. The luxury sedan's tires come to a decisive halt as the trap Mingyu set begins to close. Suddenly, the door opens to reveal Xu Suyu, who leans out with a cheerful smile and invites Mingyu to get in. Mingyu maintains a serene and untouchable expression, her plan unfolding with surgical precision. Lu Qian freezes in utter confusion, her jaw dropping as she finds herself facing Su Sayu instead of a secret lover. From the safety of the car, Mingyu and Sayu share a knowing look, leaving the stunned heiress to scramble for an explanation. Sensing the shift in power, Qian bristles with defensive rage, demanding to know if this entire group is looking for a physical fight. Mingyu tilts her head with feigned innocence, softly asking what all the commotion is about. The realization that her solid proof has vanished into thin air leaves Qian looking utterly defeated and small. Bai Wento and a group of men stand their ground behind her, their silent presence acting as a formidable wall of protection for Mingyu. High above the brewing chaos, a cold, indifferent moon illuminates the night sky. The scene shifts back to the oppressive and high-stakes atmosphere of the Lu family estate. Qian erupts in a desperate, unhinged tantrum, screaming accusations that Mingyu was caught making out with a man in a car. Bai Wento immediately scoffs at the absurd claim, suggesting that Qian is full of it and needs to get her head checked. Within the formal study, the family gathers in tense silence as Lu Qiuliang sternly orders his daughter to stop spouting nonsense. Bai Wento steps forward with a sharp gaze, pointing out how Qian's baseless lies have nearly ruined Mingyu's reputation. Desperation claws at Qian's throat as she pleads with her parents to believe that everything she said is the absolute truth. Suyu cuts her off with a cold, dismissive smile, asserting that she was the one who personally drove Mingyu there and back. Qian's voice cracks as she begs her father to pull the surveillance footage, completely unaware that her digital evidence has been wiped. Even her own brother, Lu Lin, turns his back on her, questioning how much longer she intends to keep framing Mingyu. Mingyu adopts a weary and vulnerable posture, asking her aunt and uncle to finally put an end to this exhausting scene. She sighs heavily, questioning if they will ever be allowed to live their lives without Qian throwing a massive fit over every little thing. Driven to the brink of insanity by the gaslighting, Qian lunges at Mingyu with a murderous glare. Her path is immediately blocked by Shuayu and Bai Wento, who refuse to let her get anywhere near the artist. Bai Wento watches the hysterical woman with genuine pity, wondering if Qian is actually suffering from a mental health crisis. A thunderous shout from Lu Qiuliang brings the entire room to a petrified standstill as his patience finally snaps. Seeing the patriarch's brewing fury, the guests offer a polite but firm apology before deciding it is time to leave. Suayu leaves with a parting shot, noting that since this is a private family matter, they won't intrude on the Lu household any further. Lu Qiuliang stares coldly at his wife, signaling for her to see the guests out and clear the room of outsiders. Mingyu reflects on the unwavering support of her friends, their lighthearted solidarity a stark contrast to her toxic family. The atmosphere in the hallway remains thick with tension as the guests finally depart, leaving the family alone. Lu Qiuliang stalks toward his trembling daughter, his shadow looming over her like a dark omen. Without a word of warning, he reaches out and seizes a fistful of Qian's golden hair in a display of brutal discipline. He violently jerks her head back, ignoring her panicked screams of pain as he asserts his absolute authority. Lu Lin tries to plead for mercy, reminding his father that Qian is his own flesh and blood and shouldn't be treated this way. The patriarch remains unmoved by the plea, dragging the sobbing girl toward a fate of solitary confinement. While the house descends into a nightmare of screams and turmoil, Mingyu sits calmly on the sofa, enjoying a quiet cup of tea. The internal fracture within the family deepens as Du Wengson storms out of the house to seek refuge with her own parents. Locked away in a desolate, dark warehouse, a chained and broken Qian looks up in terror as the heavy door creaks open. Mingyu stands silhouetted in the doorway, her eyes cold and calculating as she finally faces her fallen rival alone. Chained to the wall of the dark warehouse, Lu Qian erupts into a fit of unhinged rage, screaming curses at the woman who orchestrated her downfall. Her eyes widen in pure terror as she processes the cryptic message she's just been handed by her captor. The simple, chilling warning on the paper confirms that the predator she feared has finally arrived to collect his due. Qian thrashes against her restraints, her voice cracking as she desperately vows to kill Mingyu for this ultimate humiliation. Meanwhile, Xu Sayu's voice crackles with excitement over the phone, eager to hear every scandalous detail of the Lu family's sudden collapse. Mingyu sits in the quiet of her room, her expression unreadable as she listens to her friend's laughter echoing through the speaker. She reminds Suayu that the suffering Qian is enduring now is nothing compared to the years of abuse she was forced to survive herself. Her gaze drifts away from the chat, her mind already moving toward the next phase of her grand design against her relatives. She pauses for a brief moment, contemplating the high-stakes alliance she's forged with the city's most powerful man. With a steady hand, she navigates her contact list and initiates a formal video call to her silent partner. The screen flickers to life, revealing Xiuming fresh from his evening workout and clearly surprised by the late-night check-in. He looks into the camera with a heavy-lidded gaze, his focus sharpening the moment he sees Mingyu's face on the display. Mingyu radiates a sense of calm triumph, her reflection on the screen showing a woman who is finally in absolute control of her fate. Xiuming listens intently as she explains exactly how the Lu family fell right into her carefully laid trap. She asks him with a hint of playfulness if he's finally impressed by her tactical execution of the gaslighting plan. Xiuming's mind flashes back to the intense technical proximity they shared in the car, the memory still fresh in his thoughts. He accuses her of being a master of hit-and-run tactics, leaving him to deal with the mental fallout of their professional partnership. Mingyu maintains her composure, pointing out that several hours have passed, and he should have regained his focus by now. He sits back on his bed, his expression hardening as he admits that her presence makes it impossible for him to concentrate on anything else. He gazes into the lens with a piercing intensity, questioning how she expects him to find any rest after such a chaotic and successful night. His frustration boils over into a possessive warning, claiming he'll resort to drastic measures if she continues to keep him at a distance. Mingyu can't help but let out a soft, genuine laugh at his sheer audacity and unyielding focus on her. Xiuming sits alone in his vast, dimly lit apartment, the weight of their conversation hanging heavy in the silent room. He remains a sharp and dangerous weapon in her hand, his eyes reflecting a level of loyalty that borders on the absolute. Mingyu's eyes flutter open, her long lashes framing a gaze that is finally starting to clear from the fog of her recent battles. She checks her messages to find Xiuming already testing the waters, asking with a playful cat sticker if she's recovered enough for his next technical attack. The night remains still over the sprawling estate, the architectural grandeur hiding the storm of schemes brewing within its walls. A massive, obsidian black luxury sedan pulls up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the darkness with predatory precision. Xiuming sits behind the wheel, nonchalantly explaining that he switched vehicles, simply because her sister had already spotted the last one. Mingyu stares at him in disbelief, realizing that for a man of his status, changing multi-million-dollar cars is as trivial as picking out a new suit. She compares this casual display of wealth to her friend Suayu, who is still working hard just to earn an upgrade to a high-end supercar. Xiuming shifts his weight, his sharp eyes narrowing as he asks exactly where she wants to go for their next strategic briefing. A small, chibi version of the tycoon huffs in indignation, adamantly denying that he ever lost his professional composure during their previous encounter. Mingyu leans in with a teasing glint in her eyes, noting the bizarre way he seems to enjoy it when she challenges his authority. He offers a rare, soft smile, finding it fascinating that she remains so composed even when he is on the verge of a temper flare. His thoughts drift to a more dominant stance, imagining a scenario where he wouldn't stop his pursuit of her loyalty, even if she were driven to tears. Back in the present, he elegantly handles his chopsticks, his focus entirely on the woman sitting across from him at the quiet restaurant. Mingyu breaks the silence by asking a blunt question. Does he only value her for her physical appearance? He counters immediately, demanding she address him as her husband before admitting that while she is beautiful, his interest goes much deeper. He pauses with his food midair, stating with absolute conviction that he likes the person she is on the inside, regardless of her morality. However, he admits there is a fundamental paradox to his attraction that he can't quite ignore. The two sit in the glow of the traditional lanterns, the weight of his confession hanging heavy in the cool night air. He clarifies that while her soul is what keeps him, her outward beauty is the only reason he noticed her in the first place. Their private moment is suddenly shattered by a group of loud, energetic classmates who stumble upon their table. Bai Wento leads the group, his face a mask of shock as he realizes Mingyu is out on what looks like a very intimate dinner date. Xiuming's expression instantly turns to ice, his eyes flashing with a warning that these intruders are overstaying their welcome. Wento bristles with visible jealousy, struggling to accept that Mingyu has already moved on to someone so formidable. In the background, a tiny, frustrated version of Xiuming fumes at the audacity of another man speaking so familiarly to his partner. The classmates eventually take the hint and head off, but not before throwing out a casual invite for the couple to join their reunion. Xiuming's internal irritation boils over as he realizes he's being viewed as just another face in her social circle. Mingyu can't contain her amusement, letting out a soft laugh at the sheer absurdity of his mounting jealousy. She watches him with a playful smirk, wondering if his future role in her life is simply to be a high-end, fly swatter for unwanted suitors. The dinner table is spread with a lavish array of gourmet dishes, though the atmosphere remains thick with unspoken tension. Mingyu looks at Xiuming with a sharp, discerning gaze, making it clear that her life isn't defined solely by his restrictive rules. She looks away, reflecting on how her world used to be much smaller before he forced his way into her personal life. In a brief flashback, she is back at the Royal College of Art, her entire existence revolving around the solitary stroke of a brush on canvas. Xiuming watches her intently, arguing that true artistic inspiration requires her to step out and experience the world firsthand. She offers him a playful, challenging smile, asking if she's really being that difficult for him to handle. The physical space between them vanishes as they share a moment of quiet, professional focus over the shared meal. Mingyu rests her head on her hand with a teasing glint in her eyes, leaving the next move entirely up to his discretion. Xiuming stares back with a look of intense focus, finally admitting that she has won this round of their psychological tug-of-war. Back at the Lu estate, Mingyu faces her aunt, who is absolutely livid over the chaotic downfall currently tearing the family apart. Mingyu doesn't flinch, instead admitting with a cold smirk that she nearly celebrated Lu Qian's violent imprisonment. The aunt looms over her, her posture radiating pure, unadulterated hatred for the girl she views as a walking disaster. The two women stand in the middle of the grand hall, the heavy silence between them ringing louder than any shout. Mingyu's eyes narrow as she suggests that perhaps the entire family needs a psychological evaluation to deal with their growing delusions. The aunt's face contorts with a murderous rage, her eyes burning with a desire to strike back at Mingyu's relentless composure. She spits out a venomous insult about Mingyu's mother, desperate to find a single weakness in the girl's emotional armor. Mingyu stands her ground, coolly reminding her aunt that her mother never gave the Lu family a second thought. Screaming a final, desperate threat of a life worse than death, the aunt storms up the stairs in a total frenzy. Mingyu watches her retreat with a look of weary indifference, completely unaffected by the empty threats of a broken woman. Later that night, she finds a moment of peace in her bedroom. Though the family's toxicity still lingers in the air around her, she gazes toward her desk, wondering just how much further her relatives are willing to go to maintain their fragile pride. Her focus shifts to her secret social media account, which has grown to an unexpected level of popularity in just a few short months. A notification pops up in her class group chat, revealing the specific location of a late-night gathering she wasn't invited to attend. Mingyu stares at the digital screen, her mind already calculating the potential for a new strategic move against her peers. She scrolls through the messages, noticing a cryptic conversation about a high-end bar that requires a secret passcode for entry. One classmate warns that the venue is a notorious spot for illicit hookups, but Mingyu's interest is far from romantic. She types out a message with focused intent, her fingers flying across the phone's digital interface. She sends a map of the location to Sayu, looking for a technical confirmation of the bar's exact reputation. Suayu responds immediately, noting that the place is located right across from a wild club her own brother frequently visits. Memories of past social gatherings flash through Mingyu's mind, reminding her of the shallow and manipulative nature of her classmates. Mingyu makes a snap decision to investigate the venue, her internal avatar radiating a sense of mischievous purpose. She sends a final, decisive message to Sayu, demanding they head out to the location to gather intel right now. Clinging to her phone with a look of cold determination, Mingyu prepares to step back into the social fray and finish what she started. Suyu pulls up in her sleek sports car, signaling for Mingyu to hop in for their night of reconnaissance. Inside the vehicle, the two women prepare for their tactical mission as they speed toward the city's nightlife district. Suyu glances over, curious if this late-night excursion will spark a conflict with Mingyu's high-profile partner. Mingyu doesn't hesitate for a second, bluntly confirming that Xiuming will definitely be furious about this move. Suyu is momentarily stunned by her friend's brutal honesty, realizing that Mingyu prioritizes her goals over personal drama. She shifts focus back to the road, asking if their destination is a standard bar or a more exclusive venue. Mingyu fixes her gaze forward, her voice cold as she specifies they are heading straight to the elite clubhouse. They arrive at the venue, their presence immediately commanding attention as they step out into the neon glow. The architectural grandeur of the clubhouse looms before them, a playground for the city's most influential figures. Mingyu scans the surroundings with a sharp, analytical eye, looking for a specific target in the crowd. She spots the hidden entrance to the secretive bar across the street where her aunt, Duan Xiuming, was recently seen. Her eyes narrow as she identifies a luxury car parked nearby that belongs to her disgraced relative. She confirms it is indeed the vehicle Duan Xiuming rarely drives, a clear sign of a clandestine meeting in progress. Suyu watches Mingyu's back, sensing the cold determination radiating from the young artist. She asks Mingyu what the next step of the plan is now that they've located the target. Mingyu inquires if there is a specific vantage point within the clubhouse that overlooks the street below. Suyu quickly realizes the tactical advantage, noting that the presidential suite they booked has the perfect window for surveillance. A shadow of a smile touches Minyu's lips as she realizes the pieces are falling perfectly into place. They stride through the opulent lobby, their movements fluid and purposeful as they head for the elevators. Suyu pushes open the heavy doors to the private suite, ready to face whatever social chaos awaits inside. Bai Wentao nearly jumps out of his seat, his jaw dropping at the sight of Mingyu appearing in such a rowdy environment. Suayu immediately squares up to him, their long-standing rivalry sparking to life in an instant. An older gentleman raises his glass in a warm welcome, acknowledging Mingyu's status as the second miss of the Lu family. The other guests begin to whisper amongst themselves, comparing Mingyu's elegant arrival to Lu Qian's recent public downfall. Wentao snaps at his peers to show some respect, trying to shield Mingyu from their prying questions. Shuayu cuts through the tension by boldly requesting the most professional male hosts to join their table for the evening. Wentao's face turns bright red with indignation as he tries to silence Sayu's provocative demands. The older host begins to clap in genuine appreciation for Shuyu's unapologetic and bold personality. He notes that it's refreshing to see someone in their circle who refuses to put on a fake performance for the sake of etiquette. The scene shifts to the grand staircase, emphasizing the high-stakes luxury of their private gathering. Mingyu takes her place at the lounge area, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the buzzing energy of the room. She sits with a professional air, her focus remaining entirely on the strategic information she needs to gather. One of the classmates looks visibly shaken, wondering why someone as intimidating as Mingyu would choose to join them. Her presence is so overwhelming that the men nearby find themselves struggling to maintain their typical bravado. The group settles into the plush sofas of the suite, the atmosphere thick with the scent of expensive cologne and secrets. Mingyu stares off into the distance, her mind already analyzing the layout of the hidden bar across the street. One of Xiuming's associates leans in, his expression one of pure disbelief at her daring behavior. He whispers that there is no way he can keep her presence at this clubhouse a secret from his boss. He reaches for his device, warning her that he is about to send a status update directly to Xiuming. He is stunned to see that Mingyu doesn't even blink at the threat of Xiuming's inevitable intervention. He can't help but think that she is being completely pampered to the point of having zero fear of consequences. Mingyu pulls out her own phone, her fingers moving with precision as she accesses a hidden file. She taps on a specific notification, her eyes narrowing as the digital evidence finally loads. The screen reveals a grainy photo of Duan Xiuming entering the secret bar with an unidentified man, confirming Mingyu's suspicions. She looks down at the device with a sense of grim satisfaction, knowing she now holds the ultimate leverage over her aunt. The older man approaches her with a fresh glass, hoping to engage the elusive artist in a more casual conversation. The other men watch the interaction with bated breath, curious to see how Mingyu will handle the unwanted attention. They all raise their glasses in a collective toast, attempting to draw Mingyu into their circle of superficial fun. The host observes her silently, realizing that Mingyu is a master at manipulating those around her for her own ends. Mingyu looks at him with a hollow gaze, mentally categorizing everyone in the room as nothing more than useful tools. Sayu interjects with a sharp tongue, telling the men to back off and stop annoying her friend with their repetitive offers. The associate watches the two women in awe, realizing that their combined dominant energy is enough to level the entire building. Suddenly, a loud vibration from his phone shatters the moment, signaling an urgent incoming message. His eyes widen in panic as he reads the high-priority alert flashing across the bright screen. The screen displays a direct command from Xiuming himself, demanding that Mingyu answer his video call immediately or face the fallout. The lavish interior of the elite clubhouse stands as a silent witness to the high-stakes games being played within its walls. A sharp ping echoes through the air as Xiuming's digital ultimatum flashes across the screen, demanding an immediate video call. The associate breaks into a cold sweat, realizing that Xiuming's legendary temper is currently at its breaking point. Mingyu sits with a practiced air of indifference, her focus seemingly miles away from the frantic notifications lighting up her phone. A sudden realization hits the associate as he theorizes that Mingyu might be operating two separate communication systems to maintain her secrecy. He leans in with an urgent whisper, pleading with her to address the situation before the tycoon's patience completely evaporates. Mingyu stands up with a fluid, graceful motion, deciding it's time to face the digital storm away from the prying eyes of the group. Her heels click rhythmically against the polished floor as she strides toward a more private corner of the expansive suite. The associate watches her retreat, struck by the chilling level of composure she maintains while the world's most dangerous man is on the line. She stops near the grand window, her silhouette framed by the shimmering lights of the city's skyline. The video call connects to reveal a visibly livid Xiuming, who immediately begins a barrage of accusations regarding her presence at the club. Mingyu meets his gaze with a hollow, unreadable expression, letting his initial wave of frustration wash over her in silence. She shifts her attention to the street below, spotting her aunt, Duan Xiuming, preparing to make a discreet exit. With a single, authoritative gesture, Mingyu presses a finger to her lips, effectively silencing Xiuming's rant with a wordless command. She watches with predatory focus as a man assists Duan Xiuming into a luxury vehicle, confirming her target is exactly where she needs her. The view from the clubhouse window reveals the heavy traffic and neon glow of the district, where her trap is about to be sprung. A flicker of genuine surprise crosses Mingyu's face as she realizes Xiuming's car is already positioned perfectly on the street below. A small, internal version of herself reels at the tactical efficiency of the tycoon, wondering how he managed to arrive so ahead of schedule. She looks down at the black sedan, the physical manifestation of Xiuming's overwhelming influence and immediate presence. From the driver's seat, Xiuming looks up toward her window, his expression a mix of mockery and possessive intensity. Mingyu asks a blunt, technical question, seeking to confirm which high-end vehicle her partner is currently operating. Her voice drops to a cold, clinical tone as she issues a direct command to initiate a strategic collision with the target car. Xiuming's hand moves with mechanical precision, shifting the gear into place to execute the violent maneuver. He stares straight ahead with a look of absolute focus, the dashboard lights casting a sharp glow across his features. The headlights of his luxury vehicle flare to life, cutting through the darkness as the engine roars for the strike. The phone mounted on the console rattles violently as the car lurches forward in a calculated, high-speed impact. Xiuming maintains a chillingly calm demeanor as he intentionally slams his multi-million-dollar vehicle into the side of the target car. The sound of twisting metal and shattering glass erupts below, a chaotic climax to Mingyu's carefully laid plans. Even through the screen, Xiuming appears entirely unfazed by the wreckage he has just created on her behalf. He offers a final, dark smirk before informing her that he's ending the call to oversee the aftermath of the accident. Mingyu slowly lowers her device, her eyes fixed on the unfolding social disaster with a sense of grim satisfaction. Du Wengxin stumbles out of the wrecked vehicle, her face a mask of pure terror as she realizes her secret meeting has been violently exposed. The classmates in the Suik crowd around the window, their faces lighting up with the thrill of witnessing such a high-profile scandal. Passers-by on the street don't hesitate to pull out their phones, documenting Du Wengxin's public fall from grace for the entire world to see. Down on the pavement, Xiuming steps out of the wreckage and casually lights a cigarette, radiating an aura of untouchable power. He glances upward, his sharp eyes instantly locking onto Mingyu's position on the balcony. His gaze carries a silent, heavy warning that while he helped her today, she is now firmly within his reach. Lu Lin stares at the digital evidence in horror, unable to believe his mother's public disgrace. Du Wengxin collapses on her hospital bed, realizing the family's reputation is utterly destroyed. Medical staff rush to stabilize the aunt as her mental state spirals from the shock. Outside, Mingyu and Xiuming stand together in the quiet shadows of the evening. Xiuming leans in closer, his presence looming over the young artist. He follows her through the dimly lit corridor, refusing to let her escape the conversation. His hand shoots out, firmly securing her wrist to stop her mid-stride. Xiuming demands an explanation for her attempt to hire male hosts at the clubhouse. He challenges her authority, questioning if his own protection isn't sufficient for her needs. The tycoon demands to know why she finds his intense interrogation so amusing. Mingyu offers a sudden, blunt confession regarding her genuine appreciation for his presence. Xiuming freezes, his sharp gaze softening as he processes her unexpected honesty. He masks his surprise with a hand, momentarily lost for a professional retort. He realizes that Mingyu's boldness makes her a truly formidable partner in their alliance. Xiuming closes the distance, pulling her into a strict, possessive hold. Their faces draw near in a moment of intense, silent professional focus. He maintains this close proximity, asserting his dominance over the current situation. From the shadows, Wento stops dead in his tracks as he witnesses the scene. Xiuming tightens his grip, intentionally ensuring that the observer sees their connection. Mingyu realizes with a start that Xiuming is using this moment to send a message. Wento watches from the street, his expression a mask of pure disbelief. He remains frozen in the alleyway, unable to look away from the display of power. Xiuming's fingers clench tighter, signaling his absolute control over the moment. He casts a sharp, sidelong glance toward the departing classmate. He pulls Mingyu's head to his chest, shielding her view as the witness retreats. Wento looks back one last time, his face contorted with unvoiced frustration. He finally disappears into the darkness, leaving the two alone in the alley. A cold, triumphant smirk plays across Xiuming's lips as his rival departs. Mingyu scans the empty street, wondering where the silent observer has gone. Xiuming explains the technical mechanics of how he manipulated her movements without causing pain. Mingyu studies his hand, intrigued by the physical discipline required for such a maneuver. Xiuming leads Mingyu down the hallway, casually asking if she's ever tried her hand at a game of pool. He shifts the topic to the physical precision of marbles, while Mingyu confirms she's familiar with the childhood game. He reaches out to guide her hands, demonstrating the specific technical grip required for maximum control. Xiuming tells her to focus entirely on the sensation of the movement within her own palms. Mingyu attempts to mimic the sharp flick, her fingers snapping with a sudden, unpracticed tension. She winces slightly as a sharp cramp catches her off guard, prompting Xiuming to observe her lack of physical conditioning. He advises her to maintain a regular exercise routine to handle the physical demands of their high-stakes lifestyle. Xiuming gently manipulates her hand to ease the muscle tension, emphasizing the need for patience. He maintains a strictly professional focus on her recovery, noting that her current fitness level is surprisingly low. Mingyu shifts the focus back to their strategy, asking how they should handle any potential fallout from the recent accident. Xiuming offers a confident smirk, confirming that Jian Xiang is already on site to manage the technical cleanup. She inquires about the fate of the luxury Rolls-Royce Cullinan he used as a tactical battering ram. Mingyu points out that wrecking a custom Black Warrior edition worth over 10 million yuan is an incredibly expensive maneuver. Xiuming dismisses the loss of the vehicle as a minor expense in the grand scheme of their operation. At the crash site, The spectacle of the mangled luxury car draws a crowd of stunned onlookers. Zhan Xiang's associate pulls him aside to report that the woman in the wreckage is none other than Du Wengxin. The realization hits him that they have just publicly dismantled the reputation of Mingyu's biological mother. The city lights continue to flicker above the scene of the social disaster. Zhan Xiang realizes that Xiuming didn't just cause a crash. He successfully exposed a massive cheating scandal in the process. He rubs his temples in frustration, knowing the sheer amount of damage control required for a scandal of this magnitude. Zhan Xiang steps forward to command the crowd to stop filming and disperse from the private area immediately. The crowd begins to thin out as the technical recovery team takes full control of the wreckage. A sleek white sedan pulls up to the curb to extract the team from the chaos. Zhan Xiang hops into the back seat, immediately addressing his brother regarding the reckless move. He finds Xiuming sitting calmly in the shadows, wondering how the tycoon can remain so unfazed by the carnage. Zhan Xiang asks if he truly understands the identity of the person he just targeted on the road. He emphasizes that this wasn't just any target, but the biological mother of his future partner. Xiuming remains skeptical, questioning the technical validity of their biological relationship. Zhan Xiang confirms that the household records prove Mingyu and Lu Qian are indeed full-blooded sisters. He jokingly notes that Xiuming seems to have a natural talent for clashing with his future in-laws. Back at the clubhouse, Suayu is practically glowing with excitement over the explosive drama unfolding across the city. Mingyu approaches her friends with a quiet, steady stride, her mission finally accomplished. Her face carries a rare, genuine expression of relief that catches everyone by surprise. Suayu is momentarily stunned by the radiant energy Mingyu is suddenly projecting. She tells Mingyu that she hasn't seen such a bright, authentic smile on her face in years. Mingyu touches her own cheek in disbelief, wondering if her internal satisfaction was really that visible to others. Suayu insists that she looks just as dazzling as she did when she was a young child. She recalls the first time she saw Mingyu, remembering her as the radiant center of every social gathering. Suayu offers to conclude their night of reconnaissance by driving Mingyu back home. They walk toward the parking garage, their silhouettes fading into the night. Bai Wento watches from a distance, reflecting on the person he has admired throughout his entire youth. Mingyu agrees to the ride, finally ready to leave the scene of her victory. Inside the car, Suayu reflects on how absolutely thrilling the evening's tactical maneuvers turned out to be. She suddenly shouts Mingyu's name, breaking the silence of the drive with a sharp realization. Suayu asks if this entire sequence of events was a calculated move orchestrated by Mingyu from the very beginning. She smiles at the sheer brilliance of the plan that has utterly ruined her aunt's reputation in a single night. Mingyu looks out at the passing city lights, describing the maneuver as simply finding the perfect tactical opening. Suayu bursts into a fit of laughter, finding it almost impossible to believe that such a perfect sequence of events could be a mere coincidence. As they speed through the neon-lit streets, she wonders if Mingyu realizes just how much of a stir she's about to cause in the local social circles. Shui's expression turns somber as she reflects on the deep-seated grudges held by the Lu family elders, questioning the sanity of those in power. Mingyu stares straight ahead with cold, calculating eyes, flatly describing her eldest uncle as nothing short of a total psychopath. The sheer bluntness of the accusation catches Suayu off guard, making her realize just how dangerous the internal family dynamics have become. A dark memory flashes through Mingyu's mind, depicting her uncle's brutal nature and his history of controlling the women in his life with an iron fist. The luxury vehicle cuts a lonely path through the darkness of the outskirts, heading toward the heart of the storm. Mingyu leans back against the leather seat, her voice devoid of emotion as she demands to be added to the group chat to witness the impending social carnage. The engine roars with a mechanical snarl as Suayu floors the accelerator, eager to see the next phase of the plan unfold. Mingyu remains deep in thought, knowing that Lu Qiuliang has likely already reached his boiling point back at the mansion. Inside the Lu residence, the aftermath of a violent outburst is visible in the shattered porcelain and overturned furniture littering the floor. Digital notifications explode across the screens of the city's elite, as the family gossip group revels in the scandalous downfall of the matriarch. Mingyu ascends the grand staircase of her home with a steady, rhythmic pace, knowing that Du Wengxin's reputation is now officially beyond repair. She pauses at the edge of the property, her gaze fixed on the heavy iron lock that keeps her grandmother isolated in the backyard. She reflects on the legitimate medical diagnosis of dementia that her uncle used as a tactical weapon to seize control and silence the elderly woman. Back in her private quarters, Mingyu is startled by the sudden vibration of her phone against the wooden desk. A message from Xiuming pops up with a playful Shiba Inu sticker, casually suggesting they escape the drama for a late-night date. Meanwhile, the Lu household remains in total disarray as Du Wengxin flees back to her parents' home in a desperate attempt to hide from the public eye. Lu Qiuliang sits in the shadows of the living room, surrounded by his remaining heirs who are frantically trying to negotiate a way out of the mess. Mingyu types out a short, clinical response, agreeing to meet the tycoon despite the rising tension within the house. A sharp, authoritative knock echoes through her room, signaling that her brief moment of peace has come to an end. She stands up and moves toward the door, knowing that a formal summons from the head of the house cannot be ignored. Her expression hardens into a mask of professional indifference as she prepares to face the man who holds her family's fate in his hands. The heavy doors to the study swing open, revealing a servant who gestures for her to enter the lion's den. Mingyu enters the vast, dimly lit room, standing silently before her uncle who is already deep into his evening tea ritual. Lu Qiuliang moves with agonizing slowness, pouring the steaming liquid with a level of precision that feels more like a threat than a gesture of hospitality. He takes a single, calculated sip, his eyes never leaving the young woman standing across from him. With a flick of his wrist, he discards the remaining tea into a waste bowl, a habitual display of his power to waste whatever he chooses. He sets the cup down with a sharp, resonant click that seems to vibrate through the entire room. The patriarch breaks the silence by questioning her recent movements, his voice dripping with a false sense of parental concern. Mingyu meets his gaze head-on, firmly stating that her personal business outside the house is no longer a matter for his review. He slowly reaches for a silk cloth to dry his hands, reminding her of the traditional punishments she has failed to complete in her absence. A chilling, predatory smile creeps across his face as he realizes that the usual psychological tactics are no longer working on her. Mingyu feels a sudden chill run down her spine, sensing that her uncle is about to escalate their confrontation to a much more dangerous level. Without warning, he declares that her recent defiance has earned her a period of strict solitary confinement within the estate. His eyes narrow behind his glasses, searching for any sign of fear or weakness in the girl he once thought he could control. Mingyu stands tall, her silhouette illuminated by the soft light of the study as she absorbs the weight of his threat. She remains silent for a moment, her breathing steady as she calculates her next move in this high-stakes psychological game. Finally, she speaks with a voice of pure ice, refusing to accept any punishment that hasn't been justified by a proven cause. The uncle stands and leads her down a long, dark corridor, claiming it's time for her to pay a visit to the grandmother she so desperately wants to protect. He leans in close, his voice a low hiss as he insists that seeing the old woman's condition is exactly what Mingyu needs. Mingyu's heart pounds against her ribs like a trapped bird as they approach the forbidden backyard gate. The moonlight reflects off the cold stone path, leading them toward the hidden corner of the estate, where the final secrets of the Lu family are kept. Grandmother's eyes light up with a flicker of recognition as she warmly welcomes her beloved granddaughter into the secluded room. Mingyu's composure instantly shatters as she desperately clutches the old woman's weathered hands. The grandmother remains trapped in a gentler past, innocently offering candy while asking how Mingyu's parents are faring in the big city. Swallowing her grief, Mingyu forces a fragile smile and maintains the lie that her parents are doing perfectly well. The heavy atmosphere curdles as Lu Qiuliang's silhouette looms in the doorway, his voice cutting through the warmth like a blade. Mingyu's expression twists into a mask of pure horror at her uncle's calculated cruelty. Behind his polished lenses, Qiuliang's eyes gleam with a sadistic delight at the psychological damage he is about to inflict. Confused and trembling, the grandmother leans into Mingyu, begging to know what the patriarch just said. With chilling indifference, Qiuliang repeats the brutal truth that her favorite son and daughter-in-law are both dead. He punctuates the tragedy with clinical precision, explicitly detailing the fatal car accident that claimed their lives. The room falls into a deafening silence as the weight of his words crushes the grandmother's fragile mental state. Mingyu's voice erupts in a desperate roar, ordering the monster to shut his mouth and leave them in peace. The grandmother's mind finally snaps, her hands flying to her head as she lets out a piercing, soul-crushing scream. Mingyu lunges forward to shield the old woman, trying to anchor her back to reality amidst the mental collapse. She whispers frantic reassurances, lying through her teeth that her parents will be back home in time for the New Year celebrations. Qiuliang leans over them like a predatory shadow, gaslighting the grandmother by claiming Mingyu is the one responsible for their deaths. Lost in a manic frenzy of grief and confusion, the grandmother lashes out and drives a pair of sharp scissors into Mingyu's hand. A single, silent tear tracks down Mingyu's cheek as she endures the physical sting and the even deeper emotional betrayal. From the courtyard, the patriarch watches the unfolding tragedy with the cold detachment of a scientist observing a test subject. Mingyu vividly recalls the last time her uncle pushed the old woman to this extreme, leading to a desperate struggle for life in the ICU. To save her grandmother from further psychological torture, Mingyu finally breaks and begs her uncle to throw her into solitary confinement. A triumphant, terrifying smile spreads across Qiuliang's face as he praises her for finally becoming a good girl. He offers a sharp, wordless signal to his waiting security detail to begin the extraction. The guards move in with mechanical efficiency, seizing the grandmother to administer a heavy sedative. Mingyu stands frozen, forced to watch as her last connection to a loving family is dragged away into the darkness. The heavy iron door of the side warehouse groans shut, sealing Mingyu inside her cold, familiar prison. Shackled and alone, she sinks to the floor, the weight of the chains serving as a grim reminder of the many times she has occupied this cell. A haunting vision of her 12-year-old self appears in the shadows, reliving the original trauma of her uncle's discipline. In the present, she pulls her knees to her chest, her mind drifting toward the few people who have ever shown her genuine kindness. She finds a fleeting moment of peace by focusing on her professional alliance and the strange comfort she finds with Xiuming. Mingyu closes her eyes, wondering if a girl born into such a nightmare even deserves a future filled with happiness. The rhythmic click of designer heels echoes through the warehouse as a new visitor approaches the shackled artist. A shadow falls over the door as a woman taunts Mingyu, reminding her that this cage is the only place she truly belongs. Mingyu sits on the cold warehouse floor, her eyes narrowing as a massive scorpion crawls dangerously close to her leg. With a sharp, practiced movement, she flicks her finger and sends the venomous intruder flying across the room. She realizes her aim was slightly off, her mind immediately drifting back to Xiuming's lesson on the technical precision of a marble game. As she looks around, she sees the shadows are crawling with dozens of scorpions, a biological nightmare meant to break her spirit. Exhaustion finally takes hold, and she leans her head back against the rusted wall, her injured hand throbbing with a dull, persistent ache. A full day and night pass in total isolation before the heavy door groans open, and a butler informs her that her period of confinement is over. Mingyu climbs the grand staircase of the Lu mansion with a heavy, rhythmic stride, her expression as cold as the stone beneath her feet. Once inside the relative safety of her bedroom, she sinks onto the edge of her bed and reaches for her discarded mobile device. She powers on the phone, the bright glow of the screen illuminating the dark circles beneath her tired eyes. The display is flooded with frantic notifications from Xiuming, who is demanding to know if she's been compromised or if her phone was seized. Mingyu stares at the screen, a flicker of emotion passing over her face as she begins to draft a reply. Her thumb hovers over the keys as she types out a message about the critical urgency of her current situation. She pauses, reconsidering the vulnerability of her words as she stares blankly into the digital light. With a sudden, decisive motion, she taps the backspace key to erase the emotional confession entirely. Instead, she sends a single, blunt question to the tycoon, asking him simply if he has the financial means to support her goals. She watches the message status change to sent, her profile illuminated by the soft blue light of the chat window. A sharp, rhythmic knock at her door causes her to jump, and she reflexively hides the phone beneath her leg. The butler enters the room carrying a tray of warm porridge, advising her to eat before her physical condition deteriorates further. Mingyu ignores the food, looking the man directly in the eye and asking for the exact price of his loyalty to the Lu family. The butler stands perfectly still, his eyes hidden behind a shadow as he declares that his service to the master isn't motivated by money. Mingyu probes deeper, wondering if her uncle is using some form of psychological blackmail or compromising material to keep him in line. The servant maintains a professional distance, flatly refusing to continue the conversation as he prepares to depart. He slips out of the room with the silence of a ghost, leaving Mingyu alone with her thoughts and the cooling meal. Seconds later, the phone vibrates against the mattress, its screen flashing with an incoming notification from the tycoon. Xiuming responds with overwhelming confidence, telling her he's ready to provide whatever resources she needs to execute her plan. Mingyu looks away from the screen, haunted by the realization that no amount of wealth can restore her grandmother's lost memories or her parents' lives. Across the city in a high-tech study, the atmosphere is electric as a tactical operation reaches explosive climax. Zhan Xiang sits at a command console, his fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard with surgical precision. He barks orders into his headset, commanding his team to ram the target vehicle and neutralize the opposition. Exhausted but triumphant, he turns in his chair to address Xiuming, who has been watching the data feeds in silence. Zhan Xiang vents his frustration, complaining that he and his lead operative have been doing all the heavy lifting while Xiuming remains distracted. Xiuming remains perfectly composed, telling his brother to stop overthinking and simply stick to the established tactical plan. When questioned about potential variables, the tycoon coolly suggests that Zhan Xiang should have the technical expertise to handle any surprises. Zhan Xiang sighs in annoyance, noting that Xiuming shares the same infuriatingly calm demeanor as their eldest brother. Xiuming glances down at his phone again, genuinely perplexed by Mingyu's sudden inquiry into his financial status. Zhan Xiang scoffs at the question, suggesting that if she wants money, Xiuming should just hand over an unlimited black card. The tycoon shakes his head, knowing that Mingyu is far too complex and guarded to be satisfied by a mere display of wealth. He stares into the distance, his eyes narrowing as he tries to decipher the true intent behind her cryptic message. Zhan Xiang suggests a massive shopping spree to win her over, but Xiuming dismisses the idea as a tacky and ineffective approach. The brother counters by suggesting a gift that balances high-class refinement with universal appeal to bridge the gap. Xiuming sets his phone down on the desk, a new plan finally taking shape in his calculating mind. He issues a final command to retrieve a specific world-class masterpiece from his Hong Kong collection to present to the woman he admires. High above the city streets, the sun glints off the glass facade of the Duan corporate headquarters. Inside the executive office, Zhan Xiang recalls the Dawn masterpiece that Xiuming purchased in Guangzhou for a staggering sum. He notes with a smirk that the massive windfall from that single sale was enough to support the artist for a lifetime. Xiuming stares out the window, his voice low as he insists that true talent is worth far more than any amount of currency. As he prepares to leave, he clarifies that the painting isn't a gift, but a strategic lure to bring Mingyu closer to him. His eyes sharpen with a predatory focus, revealing his ultimate goal is to peel back her layers and draw out her hidden thoughts. Back at the Lu mansion, Mingyu rests on her bed, her focus entirely on the digital world within her smartphone. Her thumb glides across the screen as she meticulously tracks the fallout of the Duan family's internal power struggle. The headlines are explosive, detailing a violent coup and a high-stakes assassination attempt within the Shadow faction. A photo of a mangled luxury vehicle serves as a grim testament to the lethality of the Dark Lord's recent movements. Mingyu analyzed the complex web of family dynamics, realizing that the head of the Duan family is likely the next target. She finds herself envying that level of cold ambition, wishing she had the power to simply eliminate anyone who stands in her way. Her gaze hardens into a mask of pure calculation, knowing she must be just as ruthless to dismantle her own family. Across the city, Xiuming monitors his device, waiting with calculated patience for a sign of her cooperation. Mingyu begins typing a response, her expression unreadable as she carefully chooses her words. She reflects on the chaos in Hong Kong, deciding that Xiuming is far safer staying in CZ City than returning to the Lion's Den. A message regarding a future proposal pops up on her screen, punctuated by a playful and disarming cat sticker. A rare, subtle smirk plays across her lips as she absorbs the tycoon's bold and unexpected declaration. She looks toward her workspace, the fire of inspiration reignited by the high-stakes games being played around her. Standing before her easel, she prepares to translate her inner turmoil into something tangible and dangerous. The blank canvas sits bathed in light, a silent witness to the artist's growing resolve to strike back. 2 days later, Mingyu sits in her quarters, her mind already racing through the next phase of her tactical plan. She opens an invitation for the Thousand Star Cup art exhibition, seeing a golden opportunity to re-emerge. Checking a massive group chat, she notes the elite are already buzzing about the Qin family's expected dominance at the event. A look of ironclad determination settles on her face, as she realizes this exhibition is the perfect stage for her counterattack. Hearing footsteps in the hall, she quickly conceals her phone beneath her pillow to maintain her facade of isolation. Moments later, she is hunched over her desk, the rhythmic scratching of a traditional brush filling the silent room. She applies the ink with surgical precision, each stroke infused with the weight of her suppressed rage. A ferocious tiger begins to emerge from the paper, its snarling face a mirror image of Mingyu's own predatory spirit. The sharp click of the door handle signals an unwelcome intrusion into her private sanctuary. Mingyu doesn't flinch, continuing her work with a steady hand even as her privacy is violated. She finally turns her head, her eyes flashing with a cold, defensive light as she faces the interloper. Lu Lin strides into the room, his arrogant presence immediately souring the creative atmosphere. He leans over the desk, his eyes narrowing as he inspects the aggressive and powerful lines of the tiger painting. With a voice dripping with condescension, he demands to know the meaning behind such a violent piece of art. Mingyu calmly sets her brush on its rest, flatly stating her intention to enter the upcoming exhibition. Lu Lin scoffs at her ambition, questioning why she would choose such savage imagery for a high-society event. He stands tall and issues a stern warning, telling her not to dare steal the spotlight from the prestigious Qin family. Mingyu rises to meet his gaze, her voice cutting through his arrogance as she mocks the Lu family's desperate attempt to stay relevant. Lu Lin's face contorts with rage as his sister touches on the sensitive subject of their family's crumbling reputation. He snarls a retort, unable to handle the blunt truth about his mother's disgraceful and public downfall. Mingyu stares him down with a chillingly calm expression, asking if the truth is now a forbidden topic within their home.